100% of us were different before, so whether or not we choose to continue in that mode, I think that would be my recommendation, but it's up to you folks. At any rate, the two terrible habits that it points out this week that we read over were number 7 and number 8, like I think Stan mentioned. And I would add, well, there's already a subtitle for this book, but I'd add, in addition to that, how not to be a terrible school board member or terrible superintendent, because as you remember, there's a lesson for superintendents in each one of these as well. All right. If anybody was able to read this recently, remembers off the top of their head, maybe you can summarize number 7 for us, the scenario in number 7. Mr. Mangum,
I can summarize.
or Dr. Mangum, you'd be willing to do that? Thank you.
I usually go by Uncle Brett, so
Okay.
whatever you
Uncle
want.
Brett, great. That feels a little awkward, but all right.
So the first terrible habit, number 7, was asking for special treatment. School board member's daughter, if I recall right, needed to get a certain class, and the dad wasn't sure. The dad, who's also a school board member, wasn't sure whether she was going to be able to get the class, and so he kind of hummed and hawed about whether to call the counselor or the principal. Ended up calling the principal, and the principal was very busy, left a meeting to go to take his phone call, and real quick conversation, but he assured that his daughter was going to get the class that she needed, and the question was, how did he act appropriately as a school board member?
Okay.
Is that close? Anything you want to add?
I think you pretty much nailed it from my recollection. What are people's thoughts about this? One of the questions that comes to mind for me is it inappropriate for a parent, regardless of what their volunteer roles are, their professional roles are, to call the school and try to make something work out well for their child? Is that inappropriate in and of itself? Go ahead.
I think it is from an aspect of once we became school board members, we were no longer on the same playing field as we were when we were just a parent, so to speak. And I think parents still have a very large voice, and I think our teachers do a really good job of, at least my kids' teachers, I still have 2 at the high school, do a good job of letting me be a part of things and stuff like that, and not making me feel like I can't be just because I'm at school board. But I also don't, it can be challenging. I don't ever ask for anything special. I don't think I did before. I wasn't very good at advocating in those ways anyway, but I think it does make a difference, and we have to put on, it's not a hat we can take off and put back on.
Fair enough. That's a very legitimate perspective. This one, the book wasn't real clear on, never do this. What's the matter with this? It was a little equivocal about it. Other thoughts?
Well, I can tell you that it doesn't matter really what you were before you were a school board member, because once, as Jen was saying, I can speak from personal experience how it impacts some of the volunteer work I do, and people responding maybe more quickly to things because we've got a school board member here doing this, and I have to always say we need to separate these two things, but also you have to realize that you can't use that status to ask for special treatment or special favors. And that's a line that you really need to be careful to walk.
That's fair. Any other thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I mean, no matter how we approach it, like in this instance, we're going to put someone in a compromising position, where it could have been a simple conversation. We're still putting them in a situation where, God dang it, I probably need to react because as a school board member. And we're all very conscious of that. Having kids in school, it's a difficult position, and I find myself even the last couple of years just pulling back even more as a parent, because I don't want to put anybody in that situation, and I just feel like you're going to get somewhat, I don't want to call it favoritism, but you're going to get an immediate response, and that's not what we're here for. So there's 2 options in there that I kind of saw.
Okay.
And one was, well, in my case, let my wife do all that, and I think it's, but I still think that's still almost the same situation, because they're still our kids. So I don't even think that's even appropriate. But the other one is just let it shake out like everybody else. You shouldn't have any type of special treatment.
Well, I'll say a couple things. First of all, I admire what you're all sharing. That's fantastic. Secondly, it is the case that if a board member asks for something, I mean, you're directly my employers, and if you say, Clark, jump, I just ask how high. So definitely, if you ask me for something, and I appreciate, I've never felt like I've been put in a position by any of you where you've asked for something that was tied to your role as a board member that was out of the ordinary anyway. So that's been super for me. I've never had to parse my way through the ethics of that. I admire what you're saying, and I admire kind of what the book is suggesting, that, let it play out. You're in a different position now, so the optics on you asking for something are different than somebody else. I would go back to my initial question, is it inappropriate for a parent to ask for something for their child at school? If it is, we have hundreds of inappropriate parents in town, because I'll tell you, the entire time that I've been a teacher, an administrator, and a superintendent, I get asked all the time. What I often find myself able to say is, I would do this for anybody, but I'll especially do it for you. And if that first part is genuinely true, I would do this for anybody, I find nothing inappropriate about A, doing that, and B, telling the person, I appreciate you asking me. We've got a special relationship. We've been friends for years, whatever it is. And so, and as far as that first part's true, that's okay. I appreciate that you're very thoughtful and careful about that, though. This scenario, the gentleman started with, this is so-and-so board member, and couching it that way is certainly probably less on the appropriate side. One of his suggestions, as you say, is if you have a partner, a spouse, or whatnot, that person could ask on your behalf, and that softens it and distances it a little bit. But he also pointed out, not everybody sees it that way, so it is something to be mindful of. And
I don't think it's inappropriate for a parent to ask for anything concerning their child at any point. You can always ask. It may not be a request that can be met, but you can always ask. So I would say a parent always has a right to ask for something for their child.
I would agree with that, and I would encourage you, the three of you who are still parents of kids in our district, don't entirely feel like you have to set your parent hat down. You're still parents and whatnot, but I appreciate how thoughtful you are.
I just had one quick comment. It's completely aside, has nothing to do with really this topic, because I agree with all you. I thought as an example, maybe if I'd been the book editor, because I can't imagine at PHS, someone who was supposed to be in an honors calculus class being denied that and put into a lower class because we had too many kids that wanted to go into the class. I thought that would never happen at PHS. We would make sure that didn't happen. So
By and large, it's absolutely true. Occasionally, we do have capacity issues in dual enrollment things or whatnot. It just is a matter of, kind of first come, first serve in those cases, or random selection. But yeah, you're exactly right. In general, if somebody wants a more challenging option, we make that option available, or any option, really. That's what we're all about, so I appreciate that. Good. So the second, we'll just go really quick. Terrible habit number 8, disrespect a fellow board member. Who remembers the scenario on this? Okay, go ahead, Jane. You're saying you do or don't?
No, I just remember from doing it before.
Yeah,
It was
go
just
ahead,
generally that one, it was a confrontation at a school board meeting. At the end of the meeting, it had been going on 3 hours, which would never, ever happen here. We would never go that long. But a school board member decided she wanted to bring up a topic about girls versus boys and how they're treated in the schools.
Okay.
And one board member was tired and wanted to go home and started rolling his eyes, and they got into a verbal confrontation about what you think and what I think, and it ended up being lots of things were said that shouldn't have been said, and it wasn't a happy conclusion.
Okay.
So what to do about that?
What was the takeaway message from this, the main lesson from this one, according to the author, or on a personal level?
Mutual respect for each other.
Exactly.
Play nice in the sandbox, right? And I have to say, I just really appreciate the dynamics of our board. That the mutual respect is evident. The way that you interact with each other is terrific. This person got a little exasperated, and the gal called him on this. Wait, there's something wrong here, and they, like you say, sort of got into it. I can't imagine that happening here for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think we're all super careful with our body language and our wording and whatnot. And secondly, if somebody did do something that you felt crossed the line, the responses from you, I'm confident, would be better than my response. Let's just put it that way. Any other aspects of this that you wanted to touch on really quick?
I like that he made a comment that the face that he made making a weird face that he
Yeah.
probably learned in second grade. I thought about Jane when I was
No.
when I read that. I thought
She would never allow that.
I taught them
she
how to
probably
do that.
taught them how to make
right.
funny faces in second grade.
How to roll your eyes at the principal.
And the recommended course of action here, when the person was going on along and saying something you didn't really, 100% agree with, was what? Ignore it, or remember what they recommended?
Well, they recommended, kind of thanking the
Yeah.
board member for bringing up the difficult issue and for saying maybe there's a way we can look at both sides of this in a future board meeting and come up with a real discussion over this issue, as opposed to saying, well, why don't you think the other side needs to have their needs met as well? So,
Absolutely.
instead
And
of shutting it down, looking at a future time to tackle the issue.
100%. Respond, feel free to share your own thoughts about something in a respectful way. I appreciated that they did not recommend just sitting quietly and enduring it. There's no need or room for that either, I think. So this is a good reminder for me. The superintendent takeaway here was that, as we start off as a board, helping set the tone, I think we had some good training on that and good discussions, and our recent retreat that we did also kind of touched on some of those things. So I feel like, boy, I'm blessed. That we've got a neighboring district that just had a change in leadership, and there's a lot of dynamics to that, but a different dynamic than here. I'm really feel blessed to work with you. That's all from me.
All right. So for everybody's knowledge, so we have about 3 minutes before we're going to start into our regular session. But before that, we have a very special person in this room this evening, as she has been for almost every first Tuesday for how many years would you say?
Lots of years.
Lots of years. And this person is Nancy Hudson, who has been an amazing reporter, not just for the greater Prescott area, but really an advocate and a friend, and just someone we're dearly going to miss, not only as personally, but also within our schools. The stories you've written that highlight the tremendous things that our kids and our teachers do every week has been extraordinary. I don't think that's something that's done in every town. It's done here. It's honest. It's obviously very well done. You're available at all hours, and we make sure that we're available for you because we know that the information is important to get out there. So, Nancy, we know we're going to still see you in the community. You've got grandkids here. We'll see you on the soccer fields and everything. So it's not a goodbye, but we would like to at least give you one of our governing board coins. Andy, did you want to say something too? I'm sorry, Andy had something.
Oh, well, I was happy to see that we had this on the agenda tonight because, as Stan was saying, we're all going to miss you and your professionalism and just how you treat us with care whenever you ask us questions or write stories. We really appreciate that and are thankful for all the work that you've done over the years. So.
I've been very grateful and very fortunate. I've had, since my 44 and a half years in journalism, since I graduated from college. And it has been my greatest privilege to work with some really fine people, and your district has been just a real highlight for me. I'm going to miss you then.
Seems like.
But I've got one more graduation.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Good.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, I think we could get rolling with our board meeting. So I'll call this May 6, 2025 board meeting for the PUSD Governing Board. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Carly, if you would lead us, please. Moving on to item 3A, consider approving the agenda. Has everybody got a chance to look at the agenda?
Yes.
If there are no questions, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4A, consider approving the minutes from the study session, book study, and the regular study and voting session meetings of April 1st, 2025. Do we have any discussion? Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 5A, Career and Technical Education and San Juan River Trip. Miss Bailey and Grayson Schwartz and Jack Buckley.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for having us. It's our last one of the school year. Tonight, we have underclassmen. So that's a slight departure, but I thought it was appropriate considering graduation in a mere 2 weeks. I want to introduce you to these two gentlemen this evening. We have Grayson Schwartz and Jack Buckley. I'm going to introduce both of them, talk about their CTE programs, and also their involvement in our PHS Challenge program. And then I'll let them go through their presentations that they made. Grayson Schwartz is our sophomore. He is in his first year of our diesel program out at MIC 10, out at Ruger Road. So that means every day, Monday through Thursday, he leaves Prescott High School's campus, goes out to Ruger Road, and learns what, well, he'll tell you. In this 2-year program, so he's completing his first year, students learn the fundamentals of shop safety practices. They work with truly premier tools and equipment in a massive diesel shop. If you've been out there, you know what I'm talking about. There's literally a big rig up high. They spend significant time on diesel engines. They work on suspension, steering, brakes, electrical and electronic systems, drivetrains, and a substantial amount of time is spent learning about preventative maintenance, and more than 50% of their time is spent in what we consider to be lab work. So this is Grayson's story this evening, and so he'll show you his presentation shortly, but while I have all of them up here, I'm going to introduce Jack. Next is Jack. He is our freshman CTE student this evening. Jack is in Mr. Tolley's FMA program, FMA Film and Media Arts. Mr. Tolley is standing back there in support. Thanks for coming, Mr. Tolley. Our FMA program is housed at our Prescott High School campus, and it is a 3-year dual enrollment CTE program that focuses on media, communications, and technologies. Students work to develop stories, scripts, they apply cinematography techniques, they determine and practice roles and responsibilities for cast and crew. They work closely with the state-of-the-art equipment that is in our Badger Media studios, where they make our daily our announcements, and they perform and manage production tasks. They will be working to live stream our graduation ceremony. They focus on business practices, analyze legal and ethical issues related to the industry, and they interpret film and TV's role in our economy. Additionally, students in Mr. Tolley's FMA program take part in this program's CTSO. So each CTE program has a CTSO, which is a career and technical student organization. FMA's is Skills USA. You've probably heard of this before. Luckily, the Regional Skills USA competition is held right here in Prescott, out at Ruger Road, and Jack will show you what he created as part of this year's Skills USA program with Mr. Tolley at the helm. And then next, I'm going to transfer over into talking about our challenge program. Our challenge program is something that's been around for since COVID, kind of like 18, 19. In early April, these two students went on our annual challenge trip to the San Juan River. Well, there's other trips too, but annually we do the San Juan River trip. The weather proved to indeed be a challenge. They can tell you all about it. But these super tough students reported having a great time. They made new friends. They problem solved. They got tougher. They learned about the beautiful ecology and the natural history of the San Juan River. They prepared every meal. They cooked and cleaned every meal. They worked in cook and clean teams. They rigged and de-rigged boats. They took turns captaining our paddle boat. They rode in inflatable kayaks. They set up camp. And yes, they even dealt with the infamous groover. They'll tell you about that. Maybe you don't want to know about that. It's part of leave no trace practices. That's all you need to know. Mr. Dean and I got caught in a mess of a cottonwood debris strainer. Luckily, hero teacher Andrew Atherton saved us, pulled us out. We got stuck on boulders. We ping-ponged off canyon walls, but we all persevered, all while leaving no trace. So these guys were part of having a really amazing 4 days in beautiful Bluff, Utah. We saw ancestral Puebloan ruins. We saw evidence of westward expansion as we saw the Mormon Trail that's literally cut through Comb Ridge. So we did it all. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn over the presentations to first Grayson and then Jack.
Hi guys, how are we doing?
Good.
How you doing? So I do diesel tech. It's just working on cars, especially this first year. It's mostly the basics. So we're not actually really touching the diesel motors yet. We're just getting all of the surrounding aspects done. So far in my 4 classes, I've done preventative maintenance, electrical, steering and suspension, and manual transmissions, which I'm all wrapping up right now. None of this is really important. I just put this here so it looks pretty. Yeah. So this Monday, I took apart this, it doesn't really matter what it is. I took apart a differential. I just thought it was cool because I did it so close to this meeting. Did it with another lady, and it was just teamwork. It took 2.5 hours maybe. Pretty fun. I enjoyed it a lot more than this. This is horrible. Don't ever buy a 2011 to 16 Mustang because these transmissions are miserable. This took 4 weeks, I think. But it was a good learning experience, especially with patience and working with, it was a group of like 6 people that it took to tear this down. It was a lot of fun once it was not on my table. There's also, there we go. Last semester, I did auto electric, which was so far my favorite class. We went through, there's a lot of like, just the paper stuff, like what it's gonna do. And then at the end we did, I don't have a picture of it. I didn't think I'd be doing this 6 months ago. But we did boards, which were about as big as this table, and you would flip a switch and it would create an issue. And then you got to go and figure out what that issue was, which was really helpful. It's, yeah, really the best way to learn, in my opinion. And then with the classes, it has brought a lot of like ability. I have a shop at home, so I have a 2-point lift, which lets me work on my car pretty much whenever I want. So I've done everything on my suspension: control arms, springs, shocks, tie rods, everything. Put a bumper on, new lights, things like that. I've worked on, we have a 6.4 Power Stroke, which is a diesel motor, which is the only one I've gotten to touch. Worked on that. I get to help with like family things, like doing my mom's oil, taking care of her stuff, aligning her car for her. Really whatever I need to do. Honestly, that's been one of the most like noticeable changes, because before it was just kind of like It's a car, just does its thing. But now when I drive it and I do things, I can kind of tell what's happening and where, which is just neat. Here's more of it, just tinkering. I like to touch things and change stuff, which inevitably breaks. But to the challenge thing, I love challenge. I've only done the San Juan trip, but I want to do all of them this upcoming year. I've gone twice now. I went last year, my freshman year, and then this year. For freshman me, I don't like school. It is not my thing. But this, I mean, is so much fun. I look forward to it. This year, the email came in, and I signed up like 10 minutes later. I think the freshmen this year even said, like, it was really nice to be able to socialize with older people, and hopefully they're there next year. Yeah, to the weather thing, even though it was cold, the year before it was nice. We got to get in the water, and like we'd walk upstream and then float down, and it was a good time. This time you did not want to get in the water. It was very cold, but even still, it was definitely my favorite trip so far. That's really all I've got for you.
Nice job.
Awesome.
Any questions? Things like that?
I was just going to ask you, just quickly, not a question, but the fact that you said you didn't like school and you're involved in CTED now, I think is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
Because now you have a reason, you've got something that you like to work with.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
we need more of that. I can't do that to my car.
Yeah. Grayson, we may call you back up, but we're going to let
Might
Jack.
call you.
No worries.
Awesome. All right, thanks.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jack Buckley, as I was announced earlier. I'm with Film and TV at the Prescott campus, Prescott High School. And yeah, I'm going to go over what we do. We go over everything you need to know, how to film, what goes into a film. We've recently been doing a lot of movie watching up here, analyzing the film, discovering what they put into it, background, props, camera positions, lighting, all the above. Outfits, we have our studio room right here. This is where we get some of the announcements every morning. We have our editing room in the right bottom corner, and then we have a prop room in the right top corner. And we use all of these rooms to get the announcements out in the morning every Wednesday and Friday. We also have done some bigger projects. Like coming up, we have a project. It's to make a 3-minute long video, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We are here we go, Skills USA. So, okay, thank you. Just about. My buddy Robbie Figgins and myself were invited to do the Skills USA comp at 220 Ruger Road, and we had to work with the idea of why choose CTEC. So we got 4 hours to produce this video, 2 hours for filming, 2 hours for editing the video, and this is what we came out with. We came out on first for the that applied, and yeah, it came out pretty good if you don't mind showing it now.
I would recommend CTE as a career, and really in any facet of CTE. There are so many jobs available for anyone in any career technical ed or career in tech ed field. It's insane. You will never be looking for work. You will always have a job, and you'll get paid quite handsomely for it.
All right, kids should probably be taking welding classes at any CTE class that they can get, especially welding because of the hands-on control. They learn a trade that they can make a living at later on in life.
That was it. So that was the video we produced, and it came out really good. Everything that happened there was taught by Mr. Tolley, and he did a great job. This entire year, by far, film has been the period I always look forward to going to. It's my first period, but I enjoy it so much.
There you go.
Yeah. here, let's see. And then I have, oh, there we go. The challenge program, back to this. Want to get up? Here, come here, come here. So, yeah, like Grayson was talking about earlier, this is the PHS challenge program. It's a part of Azimuth Quest, which after these, Azimuth Quest Foundation. This is who really put us together and got us started. They help us coordinate people to go on these trips with us, help lead us and teach us different life skills and all that, like Grayson was going over. Here is, this was the Aravipa trip. We went to Aravipa Canyon and hiked 5 miles in, 5 miles back out. Backpacking 3-night trip. It was an absolute blast. And then we also have the San Juan River trip. Here's some more pictures of that. This year, it was extremely cold. It started hailing while on the water, then snowing. And it was definitely a challenge, but it was a fun one at that. That's where I really got to meet you. And it was, yeah, he's cool.
I see that.
But it was an absolute blast, and it really allows the students of Prescott High School to get out there when, for say, their parents or they just don't have the time to get out and don't have the funds to get out and do trips like this. And they get to learn so many life skills that they otherwise would not be able to get. And it's really quite incredible. And I've gone camping a few times just on my own with my own family. But this is like 3 steps on top of that. It's so much fun. And I believe that is, yeah, that's it. So thank you very much for listening. And that was my presentation. Any questions? Any questions?
I do have a question for you. So
Sure.
I've seen recently that Prescott, I think I just saw this the other day, is forming a film, maybe building a film studio and bringing a production company to town. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, we absolutely need programs and class. Yes.
You gentlemen. The idea that, I mean, Grayson, you said non-academic. I didn't know how to phrase that. Mechanic. Is that like custom work? Right now, and then working out. grit. And what they've done is they've done research. Well, as an example, they looked at the first class at West Point, and they tried to determine who was going to graduate from the United States Military Academy. And in the end, they couldn't predict the academics who was going to make it, through physical fitness who was going to make it, or any of the other tangibles or intangibles. What they did determine is that those that make it, those that succeed, are those that have grit. And you guys in this program, that's what you're teaching, Ms. Bailey. By the challenge program and all of you, you're teaching this. And so you're going to take this the rest of your life. You're successful. It may not be in the career field you're choosing right now, but it's because you've gone through this and you know how to be successful on a trip that rains, that you have to work together. And I think that's what Prescott High School kids come out of Prescott High School with, is that grit. And I think after reading it, that was the one thing that resonated with me. That's who we produce, kids with grit. And you guys are shining examples of that. So thank you for doing this tonight. Thanks.
Grayson, one thing I just heard you say that I think we undervalue a lot is you learned what you didn't want to. And oftentimes, figuring out what to do. Everybody struggles in that area, but things start to come closer together when we know what we don't want to do. And that's a huge value. And you learned a great skill, and you learned, I'm still good at this, but I could do it better in this area, so that's a huge.
So really quick, just because we can do this, right? So, guys, this is an important point. I just want to the inspiration that you provided. Thank you, and appreciate it. And then also, Ms. Bailey, thank you for doing this
Every month.
Kids have an opportunity now to determine, hey, this is cool, this aspect of this, that aspect not so much, and to kind of be forming those values and opinions of what they're going to do next in life. And you're exactly right, the kids going,
school board. Speak on this.
Honored to celebrate educators with you. They have worked for 2.5 years. These are folks who were not and so part of the certification process was for them to work in class every week from 2 to 3 hours, once a week, every week. Hour. I can tell you the growth from the beginning of Keystone has been incredible. These teachers now are master teachers on our campuses. Like, we take people to see these teachers in 10 because they are amazing at what they do. They have every opportunity that's and they have soared. So I'm honored to tell our Mile High teachers. So Kat Van, come on up. We're going to come stand in the middle. We're going to make you really uncomfortable. Yeah. We're going to do a little dance song. Nancy. Allison Mullen. Give her a round of applause. From Prescott High School, we have Calvin Otis. Brandon Stewart. And so after all of their hard work these last 2.5 years, at the end of this year, they will be fully certified Arizona teachers. So we are so proud of you. This has also been quite the journey because you're our very first graduate of our Keystone program. So you've had to be a little patient with us. We were building the airplane in the air sometimes as we were going. We were creating this as we were going through this with you. So thank you for being patient with us. So there are a few other people I would like to recognize at the same time, because this program absolutely would not have been possible without our team of instructional coaches and leaders of the program. They created it, they built it, they supported all of our teachers throughout this, through our classes, weekly coaching. So first, I would like to recognize our coach at my teaching these classes. Get up here. Yep. Instructional coach Lisa Hosking. And the leader of this program initially was Kelly Bradstreet. So come on up, Kelly. And not here with us tonight are two other of our coaches. So Jolie Tickner, who's helped create our curriculum, and Jessica Keel-Phillips, who's our high school instructional coach. So I'd just like to recognize them as well. I might have tricked you. That's all right. So congratulations to all of you guys. We are so proud of you. I know this has been a ton of work, but you should be proud of yourselves just as much. So thank you for all you're doing for our kids every single day.
Make sure you swing by the doors anytime. Right. I love it. See the Trust Fund Policy Program. We have Jennifer McClellan.
Mr. Goligoski, she is out of town today, but thank you very much. So, Mr. President, members of the Governing Board, thank you so much for bringing me up to your community tonight. I really enjoyed seeing your celebration and getting a little bit feel for how you do things at Prescott Unified. My name is McClellan. I work for the Trust. I've also been a school attorney for over 30 years. I work from Gus Rosenfeld, and I maintain that relationship as well. So I practice law part-time, and then part-time I assist the Arizona Risk Retention Trust with model policy work. So I'm going to go through a little bit of information for you about the model policy. Absolutely interrupt me, please, if you have any questions. We've had some conversations with Superintendent Penny and Ms. Torres just about preliminaries, but we'll go through most of that information through these slides. So the Trust created a model policy program about 2.5 years ago. We rolled it out beginning in 2023. The reason that they created it was that they had certain members who were dropping their initial policy, have a safety net of policies to risk for your insurance carrier. And So they hired 4 different law firms to create a nonpartisan solution. We bring scheme instead of scheme, and the purpose is generally to do to simplify, to only create policies where they were started this work. I to create the policy manual, Sunday work. We had 2 goals in mind. Are you required to have a policy under Arizona law or federal law, or does it reduce your risk if you have a policy? Things. So we went from what existing policy manual about 620, and frankly, it was more than I thought. We have 5 chapters. The policy model. The first is really your board chapter, your board work, your structure. So it contains things like open meeting law requirements, your meetings, your policy development, those types of things. The second chapter is the administration, 2 policies, one on the superintendent's duties and one on the evaluation of the superintendent. The third is the business operations chapter, and that governs everything that would relate to CFO. So from budget to monetary for instance, records, technology, safety, and information systems. So the facility use, those are also contained in Chapter 3. Currently using the model program. The policies are public. I'm going to try to connect to Mr. Hart's computer and show you what they look like, but I do have slides on the presentation that give you an overview. You can choose to create policies as you have discretion to do that as the governing board, and the platform will host them. So from subject have created, so for instance, today, Buckeye Union, and they have a dress code, the policy manual for staff, dress code for students, but not for sample policy model. So we've included their dress code policy. This is the number of districts that are currently up and operating. We have about 41 up here. We have about 10 to 12 that are choosing to transition and will be up and live on July 1. It is my recommendation that districts move forward on their fiscal year. That's just easier, but we have accommodated and put districts up mid-year. So for instance, Amphi, which is a large district in the southern part of the state, went live a couple months ago, so mid-year. And we haven't had, knock on wood, any trouble for many of our districts, any problems. We have bits and pieces where they tweak their policies after using them for a while, but we have not had any legal challenges or concerns or risks that we've had to identify and change. We do go through, this is what Chapter 1 looks like. I mentioned this is the chapter that most concerns your governance, so it's got your board authority, your organization, use of the attorney, conflicts of interest, all of your EEO policies, and then your rules of order, open meeting law, policy adoption. So that's what that would look like. You can, as I mentioned, you can put in district-specific examples. So this is an example of one. This is Dysart's first policy, and it's a recitation of their board goals. These are the districts that are currently using Unified High School Districts Elementary. These are the districts that are moving forward. And this is a slide regarding where the districts are located with respect to use currently. The current program fee is $500 to join for next year. That fee just went up $5 for next year. And the trust board, as you may be aware, the Arizona Risk Retention Trust is governed by members such as members from your district or other districts. And so they are going to, in June, consider a more graduated fee. They also are going to consider having a break for rural districts or smaller districts. That was important to one of the board members particularly. So we have the fees next year set. The fees after that will be set in June. It may be a graduated scale. I do not think that the cost of this program will exceed $2,500 at any time. That's what I've been told. If you decide to move forward, the way that you would do that would be you'd preserve the existing policies that you have. You'd work with our office to tailor, incorporate any items that you want to make sure that you have in your policy manual now that you want to transfer over. There's a series of questions within the Word documents that your administration would need to work on. You would provide us with the executed agreements. You would work with your attorney to make those changes and with our office. And then it would be up to the board if you choose to move forward on how you would like to consider a rollout of the model policy manual. So do you want to do one big study session and go through the whole manual with your superintendent and his cabinet? Do you want to consider one chapter a month? That would be up to you and a timeline. And we personalize those timelines for all the districts and work with them to make Sure. Quickly, I just want to. Sure. One more?
No, you were right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So procedurally, if you choose to move forward, you don't have on your agenda approval of the trust model policy agreement tonight, but you would ask that that be put on a future agenda and consider that. You can remain a member of ASBA if you choose to and still use the trust model policies. There's a differentiated fee for your policy work through ASBA and your membership. Other districts have chosen to exit. That's a board decision and within the board's discretion. But if you want to take advantage of the membership opportunities that ASBA offers, you can still do that and still use our model policy platform. And so that, if you don't participate in the prepaid legal system, you could use your general counsel that you use. We also have from time to time, it is somewhat of a heavy lift for your administration to go through the manual, to go through the different chapters. Although it's not terrible. I had an HR person today go through chapter 4 and I'd done a lot of the legwork for it, and I just saw in my email that she's already sent it back. So it took her a day to go through and make her decisions and add. So but I have another business superintendent who said she reserved 2 days for her staff to go through it, and they called me day one, and they're like, yeah, we're done. I said, okay, good. So, we try to make it as easy. We give checklists, we do crosswalks, we give whatever backup information you all need. We also can give examples of things for districts if they don't know. So for instance, it's our recommendation in Chapter 5 in the students that you have your class sizes listed out and connected to your teaching ratios, so that helps with open enrollment, but if you don't have samples of that, we can give that. And then once all the policies are transitioned, we have a 2-week turnaround to build the platform. So for instance, for the 10 school districts that are transitioning this year, we're asking that they be done by June 15th so we can have 2 weeks to build their platforms and have it up and operating. And then we link to Microscribe, which I'm hoping to be able to show you. Then there's some downstream work. So when I was looking at the agenda for tonight, you have a lot of your policies posted on your agenda or on your website, as you should, your non-discrimination policy, Title IX policy. So you'll need to change the links and the verbiage for those because you'd be changing the names of the policies. Other items are handbooks, trainings, forms, letterhead that you use in the HR world. Those kinds of things would need to reference the new policy manual. We do annual updates. We just issued one last week, and it did go out, Superintendent Tenney, to all trust members in the Thursday update last week. It was my decision, really, to issue it early. It relates to 3 laws that are coming up we don't know the effective date of them yet. One is about mandatory reporting, one's about directory information, and one is about the student cell phone use on campus. And it was my worry that the staff is going to need to address those issues over the summer because you have trainings you have to get on board, you have to update your student handbooks, and most of that work is done in June. So we've issued an update to address and provide changes to the policies and sample procedures for boards to consider. We also are available to do site-based training, so if you need some, governing board. I really am impressed with the book club nature of your governing board. I've written down 2 books now that I want to get and read. So clearly you're a board that values professional development. We can offer that through the trust. either through the prepaid legal system if you would like to have something specialized like a Title IX training. I do a lot of trainings. I'm doing one in a couple months for Queen Creek on board roles, superintendent roles. So, and we've developed a board orientation program, and we've developed something for governing board assistants to train up governing board assistants. So we have those models as well. And next step is we have a ton of information on the website. We have these videos that absolutely crack me up because I don't think anyone's viewed them, but they were made and they're there. So if you want to deep dive into all the videos and hear from the legal team that created it, the 4 law firms that created it were Gus Rosenfeld, Udall Shumway, Chris Welker, and Dave Paoli, who defend most of the cases that are brought, or a lot of the cases that are brought against school districts, and then Deacon Cindy McDonald down in Tucson. And so that is the information I wanted to present to you, and I don't know, Sarah, if you can help me. I sure do. Got it. And then, I'm so sorry.
So while we're waiting, you had said that you've pared it down to 220 policies, something in that range that have to do, if they deal, number one, with an Arizona state statute, and number two, if it's a policy that helps reduce risk to us.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's
But you
correct.
started with 600 and something?
Well, that's approximately how many are in the ASBA's manual.
That was my question, you just
Yeah,
answered it.
yeah.
Okay.
And when I say that number, it's policies and procedures.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'm going to get on and show you. This is the trust model policy. So this is the platform for the model policies. This is what it would look like. Up here are the different various chapters. So I'm going to click on chapter 4. It would go to the policies themselves. This is a policy that is unique to our policy manual, staff-student boundaries. So this was created by the attorneys that defend against sexual abuse molestation claims. It is attempting to hone in on inappropriate conduct with students. So we have that, policy. These are links. They are live. They should go and take you out to the statutes. So they are immediately available and frankly, I end up using this as my research tool because it's quicker for me to find it in our policy manual than it is for me to use my Westlaw. So it's very helpful. We have a wonderful, and I don't know, Sarah, if you can type in the word boundaries for me. And yep, you've got it, DARIES, there you go. And so that's our search tool. If you push enter on that, it should pull up any policy in the manual that has the word boundaries in it. So it's eminently searchable. You can use the Google Translate to translate it into a number of different languages. We have down here, we have different almost there. Here we go. We have a form bank, so these are sample forms that that you can choose to insert into your manual or not. This is an example of Chapter 5, so it goes through the attendance, your open enrollment statutes. It has optional policies, so if you choose to be a Purple Star school district or have a school that's using that, you can include that. If you don't have to. The longest policies are right here. Under the IDEA, you're required to basically reinsert the entire federal law into your policy, so we do. And then we go down to graduation, which you all would need. If you have an online program, you can include that. If you have dropout recovery, you can include that. Student rights, student code of conduct, student discipline procedures, and then various student rights that are held. So that's just an overview of the program. I can go back and show you. These are, again, the districts that we have up. So if you I'll just take Dysart's because we went to them before. Clicks, they can link on their website and link to this. We've got their logo. We've got their specific policies. I don't know that Dysart has that many that are not trust related, but I know Amphitheater does. So let me show you an example from theirs. So they have some policies like this personnel policy is not a trust model policy. So we've given it a different number and we have it in their manual and it doesn't have the copyright on it, so you know that it's their own work. and it relates to something that was specific to them, so.
So did the Dysart administration write that, or did the trust write that?
So this one is for amphitheater, and amphitheater, right, amphitheater wrote it.
Okay.
So if you have, in general, I can assist, so for instance, today, loading up the dress code policy, that's easy. But if you want a policy on something, like Flagstaff Unified was looking for a policy, they had a community member and an interest in creating a more specific procedure about reviewing library books in their library. And I didn't create one for them, but I gave them 3 examples that we found or that others had used, and and then I worked with their attorney, who was Denise Lobrit, to get them that policy written.
Okay, so you consult on that then, after the district writes that, then you can give them feedback and help them get the wording correct so it meets
Absolutely.
state requirements. Okay.
Absolutely. I always want to work with your council and your administration, because I don't want to step on any toes, but
Right.
I do this all day, and I've done it in the past, so I can absolutely consult and provide guidance or feedback.
Kind of on that note then, is this your full job? How many people do just school policy?
There are 2 of us, myself and Lillian Lee, and I do it part-time. As you can see, we have about 40 districts. We'll have about 50. We are perfectly staffed for what we're doing. The MicroScribe platform has a great turnaround time. So right now, we are really hand-holding and the districts don't have to put their policies up. They just send them to Lillian and I, we format them, and we get them up on the MicroScribe platform. And we are fine doing that. The trust is a well-oiled machine, and if we need more staffing, I'll be able to ask for that.
So what do you think is the level? So if you have 40 going to 50, when do you bring more people on, and does that affect the cost to the consumer? What kinds of issues do you see with that?
Very good questions. The trust sees this as a risk mechanism for its districts, an optional program. So they are subsidizing it, basically. The board has chosen to subsidize it. The cost to operate the MicroScribe platform itself is more than $500, right? And so is whatever they pay me and Lillian, right?
Yeah.
But they are choosing to do that, and I believe that they will continue to do that. They are eventually in June going to try to look at a more stratiated payment for school districts. But in terms of answering your question about when they might bring on more staff, I don't see that happening or the need for that right now. Okay. Lillian and I are able to give really good service and really good turnaround times. We were busy last May, June, because, with me as well, they procrastinated and waited, we'd wanted to get, and we have a couple school districts that are, we are a little bit behind. Others adopted over the full year, and they're right on track to have us. So we get busy, but it's not overwhelming, and it's not too much work. And also, a lot of it, frankly, is done by your administration or your legal counsel. So.
And one last question, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
So you said that you do annual updates based on legislation or orders that
Correct.
might come out. Do you do advisories when those things come out? Like, do you reach out to the school districts and say, hey, this is coming, here are our thoughts on this, before you actually do a formal
That's
update?
A very good question as well. We vet the model policy updates with the same 4 law firms that we used. So it's vetted. I definitely get input from experts, subject matter experts, if it needs it. So for instance, we issued a policy advisory last year about this time on fund balances, which is super technical. Yeah, look at his face. Right, ugly. Right. But for me, it was hard, right? And so I definitely hit up the business community, and I know many of them. We have Scott Thompson, who's Mesa's business superintendent, on the trust board. So I got him and Lana Berry and others involved to make sure that it was correct, right? And we will definitely vet that. With respect to the cell phone policy that we just issued, I ran it by an assistant superintendent who asked and had an interest in it. We also used a model that Dysart had developed over the year to provide a sample for you to consider. I can pull that up. I think we have it up already. Let me see if I can find it for you so I can speak to it.
So these are changes that are happening like as they happen, as opposed to
correct.
Waiting for once a year to say.
Correct. So this is a sample procedure for restricting cell phone use on campus that we developed, that I coordinated with the assistant superintendent, that you don't have to have right now, and you probably won't have to have till October. But because I don't know how, I don't imagine that any school district is going to want to start the school year without having this in place, since it's going to have to be put in place in October or whenever, it's 90 days after the legislature ends. So this is an example of what we did. And then we've got like this highlight. So this has basically an away all day program for K-8, but different restrictions for the 9th through 12th graders. But you could also, as a board, choose to require students to stow the cell phones all day if you wanted. So that would be, that's why that's highlighted, option to extend the above restrictions regardless of grade level. So that's an example. So I don't tell you what to do because it's your job. You're the policymakers, but we definitely give you options. And if this was insufficient or you wanted to look at something else, we could give input on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So we end up doing about 3 updates a year. So this year it was Title IX's mess. We issued an update. We issued this. And we always do an update after the legislative session. So we did one in August. We did one in February for Title IX. And then we just did this update regarding the 3 new laws. And then we also, for instance, on this, on May 12th next week, I'm going to do a webinar on this just so people who are interested can listen, and hopefully we'll have someone from the mandatory reporting changes are unique, a different use of school resource officers, so we invite someone from the school resource officer community to present with us.
If we, if the district is wanting to make a change, would that be really better to wait a year, or is it something that could still be done this close to a time frame of trying to be in July, or would that make more for mid-year change? What would be the expectation of time?
It's a very good question as well. It's up to you all and your administration. That's the truth of it. We've gotten school districts up and running within 6 weeks. It's a push. We definitely had some of the small school districts last year that they wanted to do the work over the summer, and so we got them up before their school year started, but not by July 1. So it's feasible for you to do that still for next year, but probably easier on your administrative team if you took the whole year next year and adopted for July 1, 2026. When we started out, it was Dysart and Queen Creek, and they adopted mid-year. So it's definitely, an option. It just is messy because you don't have, if you do it fast, some of those downstream items that I talked about, the website, the handbook, you do have to take some time to catch all the references you have. So, but it's your choice, and we can work at your speed.
Do we happen to see any potential cost savings, knowing that Dave Pioli is our attorney? He's obviously doing great work here. So you trust him. Do we see any potential in that? Obviously he's doing it for the trust and for the policy, but anytime we have any question, it would obviously be on Dave's private practice, correct? Or no?
So I work well with Dave Pioli. I present with him at the Trust Academy. He would likely rely on us to do some of the legwork and answer your legal questions. The cost to have him assist would be through prepaid legal if that's how you employ him, or through yourself. I'm not sure if you're a member of prepaid legal. You are. Yeah, so it's no extra cost to you. His review would just be through prepaid legal. So, and the hardest, I will tell you, the very hardest chapters for administration to move over are your leave policies. This is the general leave policy, and this is very difficult because every school, I am amazed by the variations in leave policies all over the state, but they are real different. And your leave, your benefits, what you pay out, vacation, sick leave, all of that, they're in different places. So that this part takes a lawyer to do. And Mr. Powley would be fine doing it. So.
Fortunately, our general leave policy is, what? No, you're not that sick. Just come to work.
That works too.
Easy.
Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate being invited here and enjoyed being with your community today. Do you have any other questions for me?
No, thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great.
And I'm going to give this right back to Sarah.
We'll move on to item 5D, the 9 through 12 grade math curriculum adoption recommendation. Kelsey.
Sarah's working fast.
You're going to time it? Go. That was good. That was quick. All right. Well, tonight I get to talk to you more about some math adoption. We've been working really hard this year with our high school team. This is really phase 2 of our entire district-wide math adoption. As a reminder, last year we did adopt new curriculum for 5th through 8th grade. We are working on high school this year, and then we will work on elementary school next year. So we do have some recommendations for you tonight. So tonight to help present are a few of our committee members. So Principal Adam Neely. Math teachers Jim Ryan, Sarah Logan, and Alvina Green. So you guys can all come on up. Except for this doesn't want to work now, Sarah. Mm-mm. You're good. There we go. So the courses that we were looking at as we started this process were Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Business, Tech, Math, AP Stats, Pre-Calculus, and then AP Calculus. So those are the courses we currently have at the high school. And I'll let Mr. Neely talk a little bit about why now was the time to look at math curriculum.
All right, so first of all, I'm excited to do this because I don't get to do this type of presentation very often, so that's exciting for me. Also, I will tell you that it's really exciting for you to get to meet some of these amazing Prescott High School math teachers that we have. As we go through here and move this one along, will you bump me there? Yeah, perfect. So you guys may not know this about me, but I'm also a proud Prescott High School math teacher, taught math for a long time. And I was part of the last adoption process in 2017. To give you some insight, we were looking at curriculum, I believe, that had last been adopted in 01 or 02, and the standards had changed a lot, but we didn't have any money to work with. And so we did a free math adoption through 2017, and there was a lot to like about what we adopted. But I will tell you that since then, what we've seen is, again, some changes with standards, and aligning that is so key for our success of our students. And then I think the biggest thing that came out of the free curriculum that we were able to get our hands on was that it did not provide some of the instructional resources and strategies that really could take us to the next level. And so as these guys go through and present, they've worked really, really hard for this. And I think what you'll see is that it not only provides great things for our students, but it also provides great things for our teachers. And I think that that is a really nice mix for what we want to offer to take ourselves to the next level with what we're doing math-wise. And then the next slide here just shows some of our, oh, sorry, you put it in front of me. I can handle that. You know, every time this comes through, you guys go through and you see district data. And no matter how it's presented, it's obvious that we have room to grow, and math is a big area for us that we are trying to grow. And you heard 5 through 8 math adoption happened. I think that's wonderful. I know that Granite and Mile High are doing amazing things to help our kids be better prepared as they get to the high school, and this is the next step for us to be able to take it beyond. One thing I didn't mention too is that 2017 adoption was for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, which means that all those other courses that you saw are looking at resources that are well beyond and honestly lead to teachers having to find open source items and things like that. And so being able to align this and better put this together is really the goal. All right, who's up? Mr. Jim Ryan.
So we have courses like the Business Tech course. Its most recent addition that we had to work with was published in 2006, but it was the 6th edition of the book, so the pictures had folks with cell phones with their antennas, had folks balancing, my mom would love this, balancing their checkbook, but she was a bookkeeper and she loved that stuff. And that's not something our students are going to be doing now. So we're looking for curriculum that's relevant, that's not outdated. Some of our curriculum wasn't as rigorous as we'd like it to be. So we're looking for that. MVP and other things that we're using, if we didn't have a curriculum, didn't have instructional practices that align, instructional materials that align with practice. And so that's what we've looked for as we've looked at the different books that we've gone through. So we're looking for good background information for them to go across from Algebra 1, build to Geometry, build to Algebra 2, the 3 courses that the state requires us to do. So that's what we're really looking for. And online supports for AP classes, because they've been pretty much doing it through colleagues who say, hey, this worked for us, work and do this. So I think who's next then? I'll let you advance our slide. I think that's it.
So we started, of course, doing research on best practices, continuing on and looking at the state curriculum and how these alignment of the curriculum that we requested some samples of, and we really delved into these month after month, week after week, and came across some narrowing of all of these curriculums to find that these are the ones that we wanted to pilot. And as we were piloting them, we would have some data analysis alongside with some conversations, what was useful, what was difficult to use in these curriculums, because we had their online version as well as the hard copies, as well as supplements, and see what was included in their curricula that they were offering us. We were able to ask these publishers questions, and our students, we would also ask them questions, you know, how did you like this? You know, what was difficult for you to do during this curriculum pilot? And it really helped us decide to narrow down to probably just the one that we came to. And now,
So there's only the 4 of us, 5 of us here, but really it was a team effort to go through this whole process, and all the teachers were 100% on board and committed to seeing like what would work and what wouldn't work. Everybody was committed to piloting all the different things, trying the online stuff, trying the textbooks and everything. So like we really had to dig into the state standards, which I think was just good for us to do as a refresher and see what aligned and what didn't align. And we were also able to look and see like if a brand new teacher came in and we just handed it over to them, how successful could they be just like taking it and running. So I feel like we did a really good job, the teachers doing that. One thing that I really loved was the 3 parents from the community who came on really early on. So we got to hear, you know, what they were looking for the parent side and take that into account. But this is our team, and honestly, I think we really came to a good decision, and it was a great team to work with. So Alvina talked a little bit about the process that we went through, how many meetings that we had, but when we started with the same goals that we've had for every single adoption, and they were these 3 pieces. We know that materials have a direct impact on student achievement. We need high quality materials in front of every student every single day. We want students to have consistency from classroom to classroom. We didn't want that disparity of one classroom has great resources because teacher found something and this other teacher is scrambling to use old curriculum or finding different resources. We want that consistency. And then also that continuum from grade to grade and content to content. So when we first started this process, we started with Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, knowing that those are really the foundation of high school math. And we wanted something that was high quality, but that had that continuum. So we were looking for a program that was consistent between those 3 content areas. It's impossible to find all the rest. They're all aligned. Those are all differently built. But as we started looking at curriculum, again, we used the same criteria that we used when we looked at 5th through 8th grade math, because we know that students coming from 5th to 8th grade into high school need the same skills and the same backgrounds. We wanted them to have the same opportunities. And again, it was built all around these 10 practices that come from research around what makes a good mathematician. What do you need built into math classrooms now for our students to be successful? So the most exciting piece was our conversation switched from, what worksheets does this have? What student support to? What instructional strategies are built in? How is the material presented and how are students going to interact with that? That was the majority of the conversations that were had when making final decisions. It even got to the point where we laid out 3 different options next to each other for the same content, same skills, and really analyzed in depth how those were presented and how students were going to respond to that, but also how that was going to impact future learning. So all of these pieces were looked at. However, the standards and the content alignment obviously had the most emphasis when it came to coming up with a final decision.
So these are the 4 curriculums that we looked at. Eureka Math down here in the bottom left. We had to eliminate that one right away because it only went through Algebra 1. It didn't provide an option for us in Geometry or Algebra 2. So that was kind of out right away. So we looked at Envision, Into Math, and Reveal Math. Back and forth, all of us talking about stuff. We came down to, not unanimously, but that we wanted to try Reveal Math and Into Math first because those seemed the most logical to us. Resources seemed good. They were well thought out. Easy for us to find our standards in them. As we went through the year, though, we realized that Reveal Math wasn't going to work for geometry. Just too far away from state standards. So that was our first one we piloted. We eliminated that one. As we got into Math, we liked that one a lot too. But it was like what we thought was good at the beginning, after we've had months and months of looking at curriculum, was like just not as in-depth as we liked. So we brought back Envision to look more at that and did the comparison that Kelsey talked about laying down lessons from standard to standard. What's that look like across the board? Very helpful for us. So then when we got to it, we came with this. That Envision, although we didn't consider it at first, gave us the complexity that we needed, gave us a variety of questions, gave us robust features in terms of online assessment and resources that we could level to our students' needs in terms of where they are now, where we want them to be with more rigorous instruction. So that's why we think Envision is our choice, and we like it a lot for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2.
Just, Kelsey, remind me, didn't we use Envision Math with the babies years ago? I remember teaching it with the little ones.
Yes, so that was adopted in 2008, I believe. So again, before the Common Core switch, but yes, it was used in elementary. It does look very
I always
different.
liked Envision with the little ones.
The one thing I do want to point out, so those of you who've been around for a few adoption processes, normally we look at a lot more options. Typically, we look at anywhere between 7 and 9 to start, and we narrow it down. When it comes to high school, there are not as many options out there because there are so many specialized math courses. So these are really you had to take Eureka Math out, like Jim said, because they only offered Algebra 1. We eliminated that immediately because we really wanted that alignment, and these are the only 3 really big options that provided Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2 options so that we had that continuum.
So there's a lot on this slide, but really it came down to kind of what Jim said, is that we started proctoring, and it's one thing, to flip through a book, before when we have 3 books, 4 books in front of us and decide what we think is going to be best. And then when you actually get into the classroom and start using it, like everything opens up as to what works and what doesn't work, what we like and what we don't like. And like Jim was saying, the first 2 options, there was just some holes. There was some alignment issues with some of the standards that we found. There was some usability issues with some of the online features that we didn't like. And so then, like Kelsey was saying, we really did look at the 3 books in one topic and was like, whoa, Envision's actually pretty good. And then we kind of started looking through it a little bit closer and decided to then pilot that one also. So we actually did get to use it in the classrooms as well. And we really did notice a lot of the features that we liked. A few of the highlights that I would say is most important, one of my favorite features actually is the virtual nerd. Sounds silly, but it's actually like a video link that can be accessible to like parents and students at home. So I get emails all the time, from parents saying, like, I can't help my kid because I haven't done this in 20 years. And now, like, there's videos, you know, that they can go online and watch. So that's one of my most favorite features, I would say. Also, just like the logical progression of all of the material, like to go from, like I teach Algebra 2, so just like going through, it just makes perfect sense. The order that they do it in, it aligns with the standards really well. And it has a really good statistics section in it, which I think is going to be a big push for Algebra 2 in the coming years. So that was great to see. And I don't know if anyone else has anything that they really wanted to say that they liked about Envision that I didn't get. But I mean, again, we had a whole long list of them. And there's great features to all of the things that we tried. It's just that this had like the most great features. And like I mentioned before, I really do think that a new teacher could come in and get this material and just go off and running, which I think is pretty important. So I like that about it as well.
So now we transition to the classes that we offer our seniors, people taking their 4th math requirement. Most of our seniors end up taking, not most, but the biggest percentage take our business technology class. And that's the one that we had a resource from 2006. And so we looked at McGraw-Hill's Modern Business Math and the Personal Literacy one. The Personal Literacy, when I read the title, it's like, hey, that's going to be it. But as we looked at it, it just wasn't doing the things that we hoped it would do that the business math does in terms of going through everyday kind of things like, how do I check my paycheck to make sure I'm getting the right things? What ways can I be paid? Am I going to be paid time and a half and get overtime? Am I going to be on a commission basis? Am I going to be strictly salary? How do I calculate that? So it goes through a nice progression of topics that are nice hands-on applications of math that they've learned. So we particularly go a lot into percentages again because no one remembers how to do percentages. So like, oh, how do we do that for benefits? How do we do that for, if I'm buying a house, what's the assessed value of the house going to be? What's that going to be in terms of my mortgage? What the monthly payment's going to be? All those kind of things. So we've liked this book a lot. And the other thing that stuck out for us is all the real-world examples that are in it. So the chapters start off with, you know, things from Procter & Gamble, Hershey, gosh, I can't think of Elon's name there, Tesla. Thank you very much. From the Federal Reserve, from Hilton. And so we just loved the modern things that were there for us to talk about instead of talking about Blockbuster as being the example of a good running business. So another 4th year math class we have is AP Stats.
I was very fortunate that I had a great online resource when I first started teaching AP Statistics, and along with College Board, I was able to squeeze by. But when looking at both of these, I found that BFW Publishers had the best one. Just like the emphasis on being able to use real-world experiences is really key to the hook of a student, especially their 4th year math. And statistics is in everything that we do. My 301 goal, if my p-value is at 0, I'm good. So I can get, so we won't go into a statistics lesson, but you know, my students are able to use linear regression to see the best bungee jump of a Barbie off the bleachers of Prescott High School, or also, you know, is the ACT scores, which ones are better compared Bradshaw's or Prescott High School. So you're able to individualize and have autonomy with this, and I love the lesson that they have, what is the better crowd feature at a Taylor Swift concert. So students are getting real life and real world application and, you know, their everyday life, and be able to use it, whether the generic brand of chocolate chip cookies, they really love the food ones because I bring in the chocolate chip cookies, whether the generic versus the Chips Ahoy's have more chips in it and which ones taste better. But anyways, that is what I really like about that, as well as the online features with this one is really important, especially when they're really studying for the AP test, which is coming this Thursday, and they're able to review and get ready for that test. And that's important for them to gain college credit if they so choose. So that's why I would really like to use BFW. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask, since we're talking about AP classes, are you finding the curriculums are maybe better focused on getting the kids through that AP exam and passing the AP exam? Like, is that a part of the curriculum, or is that still something that's kind of kept separate?
So College Board itself is trying to really come up with a lot of the reviews for that. They have videos for students to watch. I don't feel like they're as engaging as they are as in class. So we have just gone through a 6-week process of review, and we've gone through all of the units and then reflecting back how they did, and then so they take an initial practice test. I have them grade it, and then they go ahead and they start analyzing where they really need to put their focus. And then it's individualized on how they do that. So it's really important that they get that because every kid is different. And I feel like with having these new curriculums for our AP classes is essential for them passing, because that review is, sometimes you don't remember everything that you learned first semester. And taking a dual credit class, you're taking it for a semester, not a whole year. And again, essential for them to that review. So it looking forward, hoping that we get that for all our AP classes.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm new to the district, but not new to teaching pre-calculus and calculus. I've had almost 15 years experience teaching pre-calculus and calculus down in Phoenix. And when I got here, kind of to Adam's point, I pulled open the textbook that they use for pre-calculus, which is just an online textbook, and I was like, oh, this is what we use, because it was frankly outdated and just not rigorous enough is what I found. And so knowing where my pre-calc students need to be successful in calculus, I knew immediately. I was like, this is not going to cut it. Like this something needs to be better. And so there weren't a lot of different options for pre-calculus, but honestly, I started going through this Pearson book, and I was like, this is it. Like, this looks great. Like, it's much different even than how I've taught it. They kind of ordered things a little bit different. I was a little bit hesitant at first, but I started teaching it, and I was committed, to trying it out. And the order ended up actually flowing a lot better than how I've taught it in the past, like the order the textbook put it in. And my kids are really doing phenomenal, honestly, in pre-calculus, and I feel like they're really ready to get to calculus next year. Another thing that I like about the book is the online feature. So I can give homework out of the textbook, traditional, so I can grade it by hand or whatever, but I can also assign it online, and there is an infinite number of problems, and students get the same type of problem, but different numbers, so it's not like they can cheat off of each other, which I like. If they get it wrong too many times, it just automatically regenerates a new problem. So instead of like saying, you're done, you got that problem wrong, they have to keep on working at it and going. They can watch example videos, they have links to the textbook, just like the Envision does. So they can do things at home, they can have their parents look over things if they wanted to. But I mean, I really didn't see anything in the book that I didn't particularly like. To answer your question, so we do pre-calculus dual enrollment, so it's not an AP pre-calculus class, but there is an AP pre-calculus class, and that's actually the book that I started out using before I looked at the other one that's not geared towards it. So the calculus book is definitely geared towards AP calculus. So it has questions embedded in that are worded like they would ask on an AP test, and they have questions that are just worded that you would just need to be successful in a regular calculus class. But definitely the online stuff goes, and they have lots of review to prepare them for the test, a lot of different things that they can use for that as well. So yes, calculus and AP calculus are technically a little bit different, it's not like we teach to the test, but the test questions from College Board are worded a special way, so they do word some of the questions that way to prepare them for that test. And then the nice thing also about this book is that it's the same publisher as the pre-calculus book, so there is that same continuity, so everybody from pre-calculus can then go on to calculus and not have to learn anything new or have anything different. So that's our pick for pre-calculus and calculus.
So just as a quick wrap-up, these teachers spent an incredible amount of time this year analyzing textbooks and how students were responding to them, how easy it was to navigate. So these are all of our final selections. I know there's quite a few to put together, so I want to make sure they were in one spot for you. We do have currently all of these texts on public display, so they are sitting on the table right outside the door here for anybody to come and take a look at. There's physical copies, and then in our board posting that is online, we do have digital access to the Envision textbook as well, so you can get on and see the digital version of that student text. And then where we go from here, so currently those are on public display until June 10th, so we're accepting feedback until that date. After that, we'll compile any feedback that we have, and on June 17th, so our next board meeting, our plan is to come to you and ask you to vote potentially on this. And if that is approved, then in June, after that board meeting, we would start the order process and then hopefully get that in teachers' hands by the time school starts in July 31st. And then provide training for our staff as well during that time frame. And that is our presentation. Are there any other questions that we can answer for you?
Have you had any comments yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
And I can assume most of the teachers at the high school are on board?
Yes.
They like what they see?
Yeah, so every teacher at the high school who was in one of these courses was a part of our adoption process. Yeah, they were on that committee.
Yeah, and I know, and Sarah, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, but we did minute, or not in the minutes, but we announced the meetings. We've done all that, public forum.
Yes.
And minutes. All that stuff, Sarah.
They're pretty exciting if you want to review them.
I know, thanks. So,
They're all online.
I'm only asking because I don't want anything to derail if this, the timeline, if everything is approved, so that's amazing.
What kind of public participation did you have from these publicly announced posted meetings?
None, actually. We did not have anybody in attendance. Yeah, just our 3 parents who were involved, yeah.
And our students.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. The point of the question, of course, is some of you went through this with us as we had a curriculum adoption a couple years ago. There were people just up in arms that we hadn't posted because of all of the input we would have gotten, et cetera, and there was some confusion on the state level at that time. Almost no districts were posting curriculum adoption committees because they weren't considered to be board committees, and some clarification came out around that. We decided, to be on the safe side, we want to post these as a board committee, a public meeting, so we've done that. And since then, the public participation in our curriculum adoptions has been essentially nothing. So it was a tempest in a teapot. Everybody said, you got to have these posted because we're going to show up, we're going to give you our input. No one does. So we go through the process like they ask us to, and either way, we come out with really solid results. The process that we've got of involving all of the people who this really impacts initially and who've got the broad perspective is great. Getting parents involved in it, you can tell from what we've heard tonight that these folks have gone through. I mean, this was even more significant than usual. Typically, there's kind of one long phase, and as you got through your first phase, you realize we don't have what we want here, and so kind of went back to the drawing board and really I'm just really impressed with what you've come up with.
I think one of the things that I find astonishing is that you picked 2 initial ones for, I'm going back to geometry and algebra 1, 2, and then you had the foresight to go, let's go back and look at Envision again because maybe we were too quick. Maybe Envision is the one that is actually going to satisfy our needs better. And I applaud you on that because a lot of times that doesn't happen in a committee. Once you've X'd one out, you don't ever look at it again. And you obviously went in a different direction.
Yeah, I have to give them a lot of credit because when we came together to have that conversation about let's analyze the 2 pilots, we got to a point where it was, okay, let's talk about put it on the table, what's your recommendation? And there was kind of crickets. And I went, okay, now I'm going to be a little nervous, but they did a great job of talking through why they were hesitant and why it just they didn't feel confident in meeting their needs. And I will tell you, once we put Envision back on the table, we spent a whole day doing a deep dive, analyzing content by content, standard by standard. And by the end of that day, you could just see a difference in all of them. They were like, this is makes the most sense. So then they spent some time piloting it. We came back together to review, and there was just total confidence in the team that students responded. It had all the material that they needed. So they did a great job of not ruling anything out entirely and sticking up for what they thought was right. If it wasn't meeting their needs, they knew it wasn't right just to push it through because they needed something. And I have to commend them for that.
So I just have one comment. This is my first opportunity for curriculum adoption, and you have been very impressive. I'm impressed with the care that you took, the steps that you took, the piloting, seeing how it works with the students, how it works real life in the classroom. So well done, and thank you. Appreciate your effort.
It's a process we've refined over the years, and under Kelsey's leadership, we've taken it next level, and I love, I would say again, at one point, Kelsey, she's been, keeping me in the loop. I don't directly involve myself in this typically because I don't really understand math, but anyhow, she's been keeping me involved and in the loop on this. And when she said, "Yeah, we've been looking at this, we're really not sure," and they're not super excited about it, I was like, "Dang, man, we wanted to get some new materials in these folks' hands to make things better for students, and now that's really discouraging." And then I love that you looped back around and an additional resource that you'd considered initially, as you dove in deeper, you said, "Okay, this is it." That's super cool. That wouldn't have to have been that way. You might have said, "This isn't it either." We would have said, "Okay, let's start over from scratch in a year or something." But I'm glad that we got where we got. Love the work. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
I think we're great. Nice
Good luck
work.
on finals and the AP exam.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, let's just take a 5-minute break really quick so everybody can stretch. And
Andy, do you want to mention what your wife
So, okay, now for the sad part. Okay, so 5E, presentation of plaques. I know. Yes! That's a great photo. So, I think each one of us probably have some words to say to Carly, and so, first of all, Vanessa cannot be here, and if you want to explain a little bit.
Yeah, just really quickly. This was unexpected. I got an email, 40 minutes ago from Vanessa's nursing instructor. She's in CTED nursing program, saying that they have practicum that they have to do before the end of the year. Kids don't get credit. There's supposed to have been a recent day. The instructor couldn't make it, so the instructor rescheduled, and tonight was the only night. And Vanessa's like, I can't. I'm supposed to be at this board. It's my last one. And she said, I'll email him. So she said Vanessa really advocated for herself, but there is no way around this. If she's not there tonight, she doesn't finish the certificate for her nursing piece. So obviously that I'm pleased that she decided to emphasize that, but we'll recognize her in absentia and then take an opportunity to get with her individually later in person and say, man, we just really appreciate everything she's done, because been a dynamic duo there for sure.
Yeah, maybe out to the side at graduation or something where we're all there, if you guys, something like that. It's gonna be great.
Wait, you should come to we get to get to practice before then.
The practice?
Yeah, we have to do our sound check that Friday morning.
Graduation practice.
Because I feel like Friday night would maybe be a little overwhelming.
Too much, because you're carrying too much hardware and stuff.
Yeah, you have a diploma in one hand, the full thing in the other. It's a lot.
I'll send you guys some options of when you can come in there and stuff.
Thanks. Thanks. That's great. So we're just going to recognize Carly tonight, though. Okay, so it's her time, and yeah. Jane
I'm going to go first because I'm the oldest person on the board, and therefore I have a little bit of clout.
Love it.
I just think as people get older, you start to look back on the new generations coming up behind you, and you wonder if we're leaving the world in good hands, because we think about that. We think about how did we do? Well, there are lots of things we did that were really great, and there are lots of things that we've done that's not so great. So when I look at kids like you and Vanessa coming in and sitting on the board, I think we're leaving the world in really good hands. And it's not just the two of you. I admire you, both of you in particular, because we've gotten to know you. But when I see the high school kids, when I look at the Rising Star kids, I look at our kids that are getting their awards coming up this month, I think we're okay. As a world, we're okay because we've passed it on to the next generation, which is you. And we put lots of hope in you, and we know you guys will do a great job. And it's been a pleasure and an honor, and I think that every year, that we are blessed to have this type of caliber of kid coming up. So that's all I have to say.
Next oldest.
Next oldest.
That would be me.
Oldest.
I'm gonna be younger than you two.
Keep the youthful face, though, always. No, I just kind of would echo what Jane was saying. Every year, our student board members are really outstanding, and you have definitely been at the top of the list. So we appreciate you and Vanessa and your willingness to speak up, your willingness to bring forward ideas that we may not have thought of, especially from a student's perspective. That's so valuable in our meetings. And, I think, I don't want to say we're being left in good hands, because that kind of seems to me like we are the ones leaving something to you. You are the ones that are taking it. So take it and run with it, just like you did here. And that's what I would say. Thank you so much for all the work that you did.
Thank you. Why, because I'm next oldest? Is that what you're about to say?
I would never say that.
Whatever, Stan.
But it's true.
I have only gotten to be on a board with you here for a very short amount of time, but I did get to sit in the audience for a while, most of your school year, honestly, because this election took a long time. But, and I have to say, you and Vanessa both handle yourselves as well as any adult on a board. Like, it's like watching you be on a board is like watching a board member that sits here at this table. And it's so impressive and it's so inspiring. And it just reminds me, I think it keeps us grounded on why we're even in the room. And if we didn't have you, we would possibly sometimes forget the importance of the people like you. So thank you so much.
I know I'm older
I
than
don't
you.
know.
A few months.
So you're the baby?
No, she's the baby.
Okay,
That's
okay.
She
That's
keeps
you.
me from being the baby. I'm slightly younger than Stan. I would like to thank you for training me on the board. Sitting in this seat with this microphone can sometimes be intimidating, but I sat in those seats and watched you do it, and I want to thank you for setting the example and helping me learn what it means to be a member of the board. I also serve on a committee for distinguished alumni, and I can see a future day when there's a committee considering your name as a distinguished alumni for Prescott High School. You're that impressive, and I also love you because you're kind of the link between some of my kids. I got my daughter Camille, who used to sit in your seat when she was a senior in high school, and she's here today. And then Taft graduated last year, and then my little baby Bridger, who's not a baby anymore, is on student council with you, and I just appreciate the commonality we have with these incredible students. So thank you.
So I got to sit on the selection committee, right? And there were some amazing candidates, right? You and Vanessa bring different things to the table. Vanessa, for us, just how well-rounded she is. Different. You grew up in PHS and but in PUSD, but you had different experiences, and that was important for us to bring to the table, not only just for this board, but to our community members. And I will be very honest that your selection was partly not just how much you bring to the table, but for the community to showcase how wonderful both of you are. Vanessa being bilingual, taking care of their family, a special needs brother, and also being part of the Yavapai College, nursing program, that was unique. You being involved in everything, and not just being involved, you lead everything. You're the president of so many, you are the leader of them. I enjoyed the fact that your voice, you did not hesitate when there was mundane discussions to very controversial subjects. You stepped right in. You set me straight pretty, often, and I love that about you. Not afraid to direct, and these are the marks when I talked about grit. You've got it in spades. You're going to be successful. You have an amazing family. Know what you've gone through as a family. They're just very, very grounded people. Your sister serving with the 101st at Fort Campbell, so near and dear to my heart, and just things that we have discovered about you. So thank you for opening your world to us, and it's been tremendous. And this isn't the end. Obviously, we're going to stay in touch. All of us, you can count on letters of recommendation from 5 different people, probably many on here, for anything that you probably do. So don't ever hesitate to ask, and we'll definitely be seeing you at graduation.
Thank you.
So we do have a plaque for you. Yeah. Oh, not that one. Here, we're going to go with Carly, and you get a coin. How about that? And guess what? You even get to keep your nameplate.
I feel like she's in everything.
I know.
She had to, but
She
I'm
doesn't
gonna
have
get
the
a
opportunity, so.
I missed the one meeting where I could have gotten one.
Oh.
I'm so sad.
In the middle.
Yeah, can we all go up there and get a picture?
Yes. Yeah, let's all go up.
Yeah, I can't do it.
I'm sorry.
So I ate part of the deal.
So good for you.
still an open question when I leave if I get the paper certificate or the winning plaque.
We'll give you a coin.
I'm aiming for the plaque.
Here's a coin, give him a coin.
All right. Here we go.
I'd just like to say for the record, I'm the youngest, but I look the oldest. My thinning hair, my big old belly.
No. Holding it together.
You guys have done great.
All right. All right. Well, this will snap us out of the emotion. The Auditor General Spending Report update.
Thanks for that intro. It's really important that my presentation is shorter than Kelsey's, so as we go along, I will let you know if you can ask questions. So if we get close to, you know, that time, just no questions.
Entirely in charge of her whole presentation, so, I mean, I'm just saying.
I'm just going to kind of, because we have new board members, really kind of go through what a full year cycle, because this really ends a year cycle of just budget and being looked at and audited. And so for the 23-24 school year, we started having conversations about budget in January and February of 23. In March of 23, we brought forward the budget package, just like the one that you guys voted for last March for the 26 school year. But in 23 in March, they voted for the 24. Then we got into June and July, which was the proposed and adopted budget. And then in December, if you're off by 1%, we have to do a budget revision. And then in May, it's the last budget revision. And then the summer comes and we start getting audited. And I have my financial reports. And so in October, for the previous year, you get presented the annual financial report, and then we get our audit season, and we get the final packages. So literally, in March, this report comes out, and it's 2 years after you voted on the budget package as a board. And so literally, at any given time, we're operating in multiple fiscal years, and it's really 2 years before the closure of one and starting of the others. And this is really what happens. And so the Auditor General takes all of our audit financials, all the reports that I do, and they analyze us. They group us with like-sized peers when it comes to operations, transportation, and there's 208 districts that were analyzed. And we were one of them. Just a side note, charter schools do not have to go through this process and really kind of operate autonomously. Our operational group, or what our demographics look like, just so that you know, well, we're an operational peer group number 3. That just puts us together with 13 other districts, and you'll see who they are. We're not urban in the eyes of ADE, we're actually city, which is interesting. I always thought we were urban, but no, rural. We're actually considered urban in the Tri-City area. It's because of the 3 different cities' population put together, actually. And so these are just our demographics. We have had an ADM decrease of 3%. A lot of districts have had a lot worse in the last 5 years. We have a 1% ELL population, 13% poverty rate. And that's for the city. That has nothing to do with the students. It has to do with the people who live in Prescott, not the students that attend our schools. Graduation rate is, and you know what? That's interesting that it says 2021. I did not update that because I've been using the same thing over the years because these have not. So I think it actually is 80%. On the report. Now 80% is a combination of our DRP, our dropout recovery program, and our high school students. This is going to be the first year that we get 2 different separate graduation rates because our DRP program, Genesis, is a separate school now. It's an alternative school versus the high school, and so they'll be separated out. But that's why this is as low as it is. So we get into first our budget, and they chunk us in all of our spending into a series of 7 or so. And just to let you know what's the definition. Instruction is basically anything that happens in the classroom. It's the teachers, it's aides, it's supplies. Actually, coaching is also in instruction. If the students go on field trips, anything that the students are doing is instruction. Student supports, that's really where you get to the predominantly special ed staff members. Speech language pathologists, OTs, physical therapists are in the student support, instructional support. Librarians are actually in instructional support, which surprises me. I would always think that they were in student support. But then you also get Kelsey's, part of Kelsey's position is in instructional support. The instructional coaches are, anytime a teacher goes through a conference, it's coded to instructional support. You put those three categories together and you get what's called classroom support, the classroom spending. And that's where, you know, I think our taxpayers and our parents want most of the money going to, and you're going to see how we compare to our operational peers. But on the surface, we put 72.5% of all of our spending in the combination of those three categories. Then you get into administration. Administration is, what do you think it is? It's principals, it's superintendents, it's Mrs. Torres, it's myself, but it also are the administrative assistants at the schools. So their admin assistants are coded to administration. It's the whole district office, it's business services, it's HR, it's grants. And so administration encompasses a lot more than assistant principals, principals, and superintendents. Plant operations is just that. It's what keeps our sites going, and just a lot of building maintenance. It's a big category. Food service, just that. Anything that has to do with feeding the kids. Transportation has everything to do with taking students to and from their home, and those are categories that we are compared. Any questions on just the categories? Yeah, I mean,
it's nice to see the pie chart.
Yeah, and so what happens is with that operational peer group, we actually get we get rankings with some of these low, and actually the rankings are very low, low, comparable, high, or very high, and there's thresholds when they look at it. But these are our last year's, the fiscal year 24, so the 23-24 school year, on where we ranked in comparison to our peers. Administration, we were very low. Actually, we've been very low or low ever since the 16-17 school year. There is something to be said of whether administration can be too low. Mr. Tenney brings this up all the time when it comes to, you know, if our pay scales are not in comparability when it comes to the other districts, attracting new administrators to the district. But when compared to our peers, we're very low at $1,069 per student, and you can see the state average, and actually our peer average is $1,300, so we are pretty significant underneath our peer average. Plant operations, we're low when it comes to spending per square foot. We really can't control our square feet. It's our campuses, unless we sell a campus, or that's really it. Our square footage is just that. Food service, we operate at a very low $3.51 per meal cost. When compared to our peer groups, it's $4.20. Transportation in square mile, spending per mile and spending per rider. It's interesting, I never really thought of this, but it's almost $2,000 for every student who rides our buses to and from school. And so we get about $1.4 million for our transportation budgets, and we spend right around $1.45 million on transportation.
Brian, how does that stay low, I guess, if we're transporting all these students? I mean,
there is if you have about 30 minutes, you can come to my office. No, there's a nasty report I have to do after the 100th day, which essentially is calculating the drivers actually have to use a clicker and count every student that gets on their bus for both to school and from school. They have to take odometer readings, and I have to do a report that tracks every student for the first 100 days, and you have to take the top 25 days of the 100 with the higher ridership, and it's a big formula, and it drives these numbers.
Some of the things that can impact that, to maybe address your question as well, are did we purchase buses in the last financial cycle? What do we pay our drivers compared to other places? Do we live in Flagstaff where gas is more expensive, or Yuma where gas is less expensive? All those things can be factors, but the way it's tracked, the way it's calculated. Right?
It is, and there are certain funds.
It's not that we, sorry, it's not that we have rickety buses or buses that are falling apart or we're not like below the benchmarks on this, right?
No, not at all. In fact, our 2015 bond really set us up well when it comes to our fleet. There are certain funds that actually do not factor into this because, like a bond, for example, a bond not every district can pass, and so it's really hard if we buy 20 new buses at $200,000 each. That's going to jack these up, and so they pull, for example, bond money out of these calculations once again to be comparable. Just a few notes on here. You know, only 27 out of 147 districts have a very low as their administration designation when looking at peers. Only 22 out of 206 have their administration per pupil lower than PUSD. The lowest is Glendale Union High School at $861. And the highest is Apache Elementary, which is almost a little over $11,000 for pupil, and we're right over 1,000. And those are districts. A lot of those districts that have the high ones, they have 50 kids, you know, and so you have to have a principal and you have to have a livable wage, and so you divide it by the number of students when it's that low. That's how that gets set.
We've discussed before a couple of things with administrative spending as well. Arizona is ranked among the 50 states the lowest of all of them, including the District of Columbia. We're 51st out of 51, generally speaking, on average. So the fact that PUSD is in the bottom, roughly 10%, 11% of all of Arizona is pretty remarkable. The other thing that's notable, people are constantly concerned about administrative spending. I totally get that. That makes a lot of sense. Ryan mentioned earlier, there's a point at which it becomes too low, right? There you get some diminishing returns after a while. But I'm pretty proud that we're fairly low in each of these categories. If that's people are big supporters of charter schools and that idea, and the idea is intriguing. But if you're worried about administrative spending, you're not a charter school fan because on average they spend double what public district schools spend. We've actually got comparisons of all the local charter schools to PUSD on the link from the front page of our website if people are interested, because we get that question occasionally.
You know, what's interesting to me is that the square footage per student are actually higher.
Yes, we are.
Which I think is interesting, because we have older schools, but we're still giving the kids have more square footage.
We've got a fair amount of unused space at Mile High and some at Granite as well. There's some places that are just packed in. I'm intrigued by the fact that our plant operations spending is low compared to peers, in spite of the fact that I'm not sure if there's another school district in Arizona that's got older facilities than ours.
80 years old average.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but I think it's this year 77 years old is our average school age, which that's just harder to keep up, right?
That's
We're in the
older
middle
than
of replacing a. That's even older than that's right, Jimmy. Good
Not by
pickup.
much, but a little.
Yeah. We get stuff that goes out all the time. We're replacing a water main at the service center right now.
Yeah.
It's just a function of it being too old. We found out it was leaking 15,000 gallons of water every day, and so we fixing it right away. But that's a cost that we weren't anticipating at the beginning of the year. So I appreciate the board's always real thoughtful and cautious about our budgeting. Last year, for instance, we had some families say, "Hey, we want first grade class sizes at this one school to be lower," and had a lot of meetings with us. We said, "We never know what's going to happen. We've got to be super careful about those things." Well, what happened is first grade class sizes came in lower than we expected. Not hiring an additional teacher was the right thing to do there, and we've got $30,000 worth of repairs we're doing on a pipe right now that we didn't anticipate. So we need to be real thoughtful and mindful about that. I appreciate you pushed us in that direction our last few years.
It'll be interesting next year about the transportation, because this year, we made a decision and the governing board supported the recommendation to increase the pay for the drivers because we were having a hard time recruiting and retaining our drivers. That will impact these type of things.
Very low is great until you find out you can't get good people doing that.
Yeah. All right. So just kind of breaking that out to our peers, you can ask as many questions as you want. These are pretty self-explanatory. This is the 72.5% that we spend in instruction, student support, instructional support. That you can see the peers below or in your handouts. And I mean, there are only 12 districts out of 206 that have a higher classroom spending than PUSD. And our peer group, we don't even have anyone who hits 70%. Questions or comments on this?
So I'd love to point out to people, there's not a similar district in the entire state that puts more of their budget into the classroom primarily teachers, but also many other things, as Brian pointed out, than PUSD does. That's something to be proud of for sure.
Peer groups are determined by number of students.
Yes and no. To be in a similar peer group, they look at a whole bunch, and I really haven't been able to see really what their methodology is. It's geographic, it is number of students, which drives the operational budgets, and so, you know, why Fountain Hills is in there and Cave Creek, it makes sense Humboldt, but I really haven't found a great definition of, I did find when it comes to academic peer groups, they group you by poverty of the city, and if you hit a certain bar or below, you're in that group. But when it comes to the operational peer groups, it's just, they have deemed these as districts that operate similarly, and thus we should be having about the same percentage or comparable in the reporting areas.
I'm not sure if they've, like Brian says, if they've given us a specific definition for how they sort that out, but anecdotally, it's clear that we're roughly the same size as these other districts, very likely have roughly the same size budget as the other districts, and there may be a geographic component as well.
Yeah.
It just seems like Fountain Hills is such an outlier all the
Yeah.
time. Like, it's in the wrong category.
And it really, I could probably argue a couple of them and go, why, you know? I mean, the transportation is a different peer group as well, and that has to do with the boundaries that you're yes, that you have to drive. So when it comes to the administrative spending percentage, like you saw in the pie graph, it was 9.4%. Here's how we compare to our operational peer group. It seems like we flip-flop with Humboldt at the lowest of the administration percentage of the budget every other year. And I can tell you, they made a decision last year for implementation of this year to lower some of their instructional support and have assistant principals at their elementary school. That's going to impact them on this level because their student support is going down and their administration support is going up. I would be really surprised if Humboldt's lower than us next year.
It's a very legitimate way to structure how you do things, but it will make an impact on how they come out in this report next year.
So questions on this? So those are the two main areas that people look at: instruction percent in the classroom, and then also administrative. The next is they do compare and they report out when it comes to teacher salaries, and we do have the Joe Howard best moment of his life, and that was our PUSD salary was higher than the state. And as you can see from this graph, it quickly went the other way. I will mention that this is the first year, fiscal year 25, is the first year that they have standardized what is considered teacher pay. It has been subjective to districts on whether they included coaching or clubs. They would give guidance, but there was no coding difference between those. And so I think that there is a lot of variability between districts on really what they're reporting, and they were essentially expecting us to self-report what was in teacher pay and 301. Those are the only two things that should go into teacher pay. Not even performance pay should go into teacher pay. It's just the teacher compensation and what's on their contract. So this will be very interesting next year because everyone was made to change their coding structure this fiscal year. So 1 year from now, we'll see how that changes with our comparisons to the state.
Hey, Brian, it would be interesting to see, and I used the same type of graph showing year by year, just even for our admin percentage, just kind of where we compare. I know we haven't done it per peer group. I mean, that's kind of a relatively new thing, right? I don't want people to think that, holy crap, we've just done this, just going back before we go to the teacher salary. I don't want people to think that we just did this in the last 2 years. That's not at all the case.
Yeah, our administrative spending has been consistently low. That's what
it is consistently low. And it is important that we've had lots of boards, succession in boards that have kept it low within Prescott. And, you know, because the way I look at it, if I were to report on this right now, I'd be like, well, you know, the last 2 years, you know, we were the first ones to bring this down. That's not how we've been running. And you know what I'm trying to kind of say?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really also knowing the rules and also the coding structure. Because when I was hired, Joe actually handed me this and said, this is your evaluation. there's no way, because in this 15-16 school year, we had very high administrative costs when compared to our peers. And so I started diving in. And for example, our special ed director, who is at any given time with benefits, is over $100,000 employee. It's $30+ per pupil, just that one position. They coded it to administration, and it clearly says it should go into instructional support. So there was a deep dive into the coding, and we went from that year very high down to low the next year. And it wasn't anything we did except for do things right.
Sorry to take us backwards.
Yep. This is new. This is the first time actually we've shown this. This is, and we've shown actually this to staff in our DAT chats. But it's our operational peer groups, average teacher salaries. This is not part of the Auditor General's report. I just compiled this information, and if you can see that our average teacher pay, including 31, is $61,396. And these are our peer groups. But the biggest thing that we added is which districts are operating on an M&O override. So their taxpayers have said, yes, the state does not fund adequately for education. We are going to pay more in taxes to have you have more maintenance and operation budget. And only Apache Junction Unified School District is really by us that's not operating on an override. And even more so, the Union High Schools, a student who is 9th through 12th is worth more funding-wise than a K-8 student. So their whole population of students actually is more, and so the Union High Schools are usually higher as well, but they're also operating on an override. So it's just some information.
Some of you board members I know got a communication recently from a community member who was concerned about some things and mentioned that, you know, we should be paying everybody more money. And I was like, that's a great idea. I love that idea. One of the things he suggested was that the average teacher pay in the valley is $75,000. You can see from the graphs you have in front of you, these off by $10,000. 65,000 is the statewide. We're trying to get there. We're doing what we can, and you know, we're not taking that money and putting it into our plant operations or transportation or certainly administration. It's going to teachers. I appreciate that focus that the board has had for years.
Then we also have
you also see the difference that override makes. Everybody who pays more than us has an override.
Yeah, and yes,
It's
and
just
one
that
of
the state isn't funding. You know, we're so underfunded from a state level.
and if we were funded like a charter school, we would have $5 million more out of our $28 million. But it's because it's deemed they don't have a taxpayer base, so they can't go for an override or a bond, so they're just giving more money. That would be a game changer for us. And everybody, actually. We are compared when it comes to our assessment scores. And so the top chart is essentially if they had a score to report, doesn't matter how many students. For example, math had 178 scores. We were the 35th highest with a 37%. And I got to take out the word passing percentage because we have tried to reiterate that. It's not a passing percentage because that brings into the old mindset of 80% is a B to, to 90%. So 37% of students that showed high proficiency or proficiency on the test, that put us in the 20th percentile. ELA, we were in the just under 20th percentile, and science, we were 26.
You know, we get asked a lot, is that good enough? The answer is no, that's not good enough. We're working hard to get better. But we also hear the narrative in town sometimes that, our scores are rock bottom, they're in the toilet, or we're massively underperforming, I think was the quote from the email that some of us got today. The statistics don't bear that out. And the results, sitting right there in that chair, don't bear that out either. We're trying hard, we want to get better, and we are improving, but we're not massively underperforming. We're doing okay. We're in the top tier of all districts in the state. We can get better. We're Prescott. There's no reason not to, other than the fact that we're vastly underfunded compared to some other even Arizona districts. But
we're not operating on a bond and override. Right. It's kind of like the gentleman that sat up here and talked about the diesel engines. I mean, imagine, doing what he did, but not giving him any tools. With the math adoption 2017, they did a math adoption and it had to be free. And that was because our DAA allocation at that time was $200,000 for the whole year. What we was presenting is going to be more than $200,000 as it is. So, you know, money does make a difference, because if you don't have the tools to do your job, it's hard, you know, keeping kids engaged when it's free online stuff and teachers doing the best they can. In a lot of districts, like Clark, you said that 80% of all students in Arizona attend a district that's on a bond or an override, or both. When it comes to the state assessments, really what I outlined, not to, you know, just to compare, not to make any judgments, with our Tri-City, because Tri-City schools, because that's really who we kind of are compared to by our parents, and a lot of people choose to send their students to PUSD because how they do. And so you'll just see the blue is PUSD, red is Humboldt, Chino is yellow, and Arizona state average is in green. We are above all of those. What isn't on here is we do have an academic peer group, and it seems to always adjust where that bar is based on where Prescott is. One time it was 14% or lower poverty, and we were 14th, or 14%. This year it was 13% or lower, and we're 13. One year it was 11% or lower, and we were 11. So we have an operational academic peer group that's based on poverty of the city, but I just don't think that that's a great measure, because we are a retirement community with a lot. We're only one of 7 districts that actually can tax for their whole budget. That's how wealthy our boundaries are, yet that's not what our students' population is, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing, is that the poverty rate of our students far exceeds that 13%.
Oh yeah, I mean, Lincoln is, I think they hit 58% this year.
Free and reduced.
Yeah, free and reduced.
So, right, yeah, district-wide, if the actual folks who have applied for and qualified for free and reduced, what we figure about 37%. If you look at just our K through 6 schools, it's 49%, and we know it doesn't drop off after that, right? It's not like families get richer as soon as their kid goes to 7th grade or something. They just stop applying for free and reduced lunch because they don't see the point anymore, so
The
yeah.
other thing, back to, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Back to this slide as well, is that we have to remember this is first of all, it's an Arizona state assessment. We can't compare us to other states because our assessment's so different. It's not a national test. And I know I'm sound like a broken record, but if you ever go on the Department of Ed and actually try to take one of these tests, you're going to be blown away by how difficult they are to maneuver. And this is a hot spot for me, because people do look at those percentages as percentages, and they're not. And then they compare us to other states. And you cannot do that with
It's apples and oranges.
They're different standards.
They're super challenging tests, and that's by design. It's supposed to be, right? If every kid was passing it, doesn't give us a lot of good data. So no problem unless somebody comes and they say, wait a minute. They look at ELA and they say 44% of your kids were highly proficient or fully proficient. That means half your kids can't read. No, that's not what it means. We got to go back and educate a little bit. So I appreciate that.
You have 3 minutes for questions.
Ooh, 3 minutes.
And I will have beat Kelsey by 1 minute.
Oh, wow.
That's what I was trying to.
4 minutes.
I mean, our audit and what's presented to you in March, I mean, that's a report card on a compliance standpoint. This, really, I see it as PUSD's report card on priorities and making sure that our decisions are being made that's in the best interests of the kids. And in my 8 years in this position, I think that we do.
Can I add one thing that I've asked Sarah to place in front of you? There's a little sheet that front and back, it talks about, this is from ASBA, but it talks about the Auditor General's report and the financial risk categories. I asked Brian not to get into the weeds on this, but long story short, how many categories are there, and how many categories does the Auditor General say PUSD is at high risk?
There's 8 categories, and when our DAA started to come back in 2015, 16, and 16, 17, it's called District Additional Assistance because you can keep it in capital, which is what it's intended for, or swing it to your maintenance and operation budget to help with supplies and salaries and benefits. And we swung $700,000 between those 2 years into our M&O so that we could give a raise. So that puts us high risk because essentially 1 out of every $3 we're taking out of our DAA and putting it into M&O. So out of the 8, we're high risk in 1.
So the Auditor General is pointing out that in general, most districts don't do that. They intended for capital, and they keep it as capital. We've chosen to put less into capital, right? Even though we have 77-year-old buildings, we spend less than that than almost any other district, so that we can be where we're at, pretty close to the average for teacher salaries. If we took that out of DAA, we'd have to cut teacher salaries next year. That's not something that
Yeah, it's reoccurring money that unless we said, we're no longer going to give a raise with the 700,000 because we did it in the past, and we're going to swing it over, you know, if we had a boom of students, and instead of giving that additional revenue to raises, we would have to put it into DAA. So that's the only way to bring it back.
Is this unusual for a district to have one high-risk category?
No, I would say most districts have, you know, most districts either have no high risk or maybe one. And this was an intentional decision that we made because it was worth a raise.
Yeah, I'm proud of that. It is true, though, there's been a lot of information in the press, particularly down in the valley, about districts that are in receivership and, you know, having difficulty financially. And this kind of shows that we're not in that situation. We've been well managed by an excellent CFO, a great former superintendent, and solid boards the last several years.
Does anyone have a 40-second question?
I'm trying to stretch this out.
No, any questions? It's already been a while.
And does this get posted to the website?
Yes.
Items?
It is, it'll be on the bottom in the budget documents as soon as we're done here.
I think it's a highlight for sure.
Sorry, Kels.
How are we doing?
I beat you by 19 seconds.
Wow, that was.
I think we call it a tie. That's pretty good.
You're both excellent.
Statistically insignificant.
Thank you, yeah.
All right, moving on to item 6A, summary current events.
Mr. Tay.
Okay, super. First of all, I just wanted to say, I love who I get to work with. I can be below average like I am, and still things go really well because I'm surrounded by great people. That's one thing, I guess, if I do anything well, it's finding good people to be around me and listening to what they have to say. And you'll hear more from Andy later. Everything that's gone right tonight is because of Michael and Sarah. You heard Adam. I'm in an enviable position that way. I've got great people above me, great people next to me, and that's why PUSD runs so well. I want to say, Carly, as well, thank you for your service. It is true that we've had board representatives for many years. Two of my own children got to do this years ago. One of Dr. Mangum's children was here earlier, got to do that. You might think because it goes so well and it's kind of cool that's pretty common in Arizona. It's not the case. Like so many things that we have in PUSD that are really super cool, kind of unique. I get asked by other superintendents all the time. They've heard, wait, you got student representatives on your board? What's that look like? How do you choose them? How do they contribute and whatnot? I'm always super happy to share about that neat aspect that we've got. And Carly, you've been one of the best. We're going to miss you. Super proud of you. It was neat to see Carly and Vanessa 10 years ago at Abaya Jed with me, and it'll be even neater to see where they're at 10 years from now. All right, so a couple things just really quick I'll go through. A couple of you were with us at the 4.0 banquet. The Lions Club puts this on every year for students who have achieved a 4.0 grade point average throughout high school up to that point. And we had, Mr. Neely, we count 51, I think, on the program from PUSD. And I think that we outpaced Humboldt by one, if I counted correctly.
But who's counting?
Yeah, but who's counting, right? Exactly. But who's counting? Very good. All right, so that happened a little bit ago. There's Mr. Gallagher. No, you're fine. You're good. There's Mr. Gallagowski in the corner and Adam there in front. I think I was able to tuck myself in behind. Yeah, Carly's up there. Yeah, you don't have to point me out. Go ahead.
There she is, right in front.
Super. Another super neat thing I was able to do recently was attend our high school baseball team versus the special needs students in the area. They have a challenger baseball team, they call it. And they play against Embry-Riddle softball team and baseball team and Yavapai colleges and some of the Little League teams in town. They played against the Badgers. We were super error prone that day. Yeah. And it turned out the challenger team beat us 32-0, but it was super fun to watch. I loved to see our young men interact with their peers who have special needs. It was just heartwarming and a big part of what we do. That's never going to show up on any Auditor General's report, but it's a big part of who we are as PUSD. I'm proud of it.
And those boys, went to state, right?
They did.
Lost their first round.
They went to state, and their last 3 games, Coach Hutch was telling me they lost by three runs, which is a tough way to end the season, but a real successful season for them as well, like a lot of our sports teams. Yeah, thank you. As well, what's this been? About a week and a half ago, the the Arizona Philharmonic rents the Ruth Street Theater, and as part of that, we have, as part of that rental agreement, they do some outreach with our students, mostly at the high school, but this year they worked with the Acker Foundation in town to get all of our third graders recorders. And if you've been a parent with a third grader with a recorder, you know there's pros and cons to that scenario.
How many recorders?
My husband nearly wanted to harm a child in Mexico recently with a recorder situation, so.
I think you're picking up what
It
I'm
was a
laying
little
down there.
scary.
All right, good, good. Anyhow, week and a half ago or so in the Ruth Street Theater, we gathered all 300-ish, 300 plus of our third grade students together, and they had, I think I shared this with you in a board report, anyhow, they had been assigned as classes to, okay, Ms. Bishop's class, your class is in charge of coming up with a composition that expresses happiness, and Mrs. Thomas's class, your class is in charge of coming up with a composition that expresses worry and whatnot. So they learned about those musical emotions and whatnot, and so they did a simple composition, and then the Arizona Philharmonic had a string quartet, you can maybe see in the left group there, and they had tied together each of the 10 classes, 10 homeroom classes compositions with like a really cool string quartet bridge in between. And so they had one class play, and then there's a string quartet bridge, and then the next class would play their, Curiosity, whatever it was. It was pretty neat to see our kids in our community coming together with professional musicians and learning neat things. Again, we'll never show up on a Auditor General's report or a standardized test score, but a really cool part of what we offer to kids. Been around to several schools, I do that just about 3 times a week. I try to get around to schools and just some neat things in the hallways wherever I go. Really, really neat to see. There's our third grade team at Taylor Hicks. Mrs. Bishop, who's retiring this year, Ms. Wagner, I think, who's going to be taking over for her kind of as her student teacher right now. Anyhow, a neat team there with some ladies who've been with us for a long time, some moving on and some coming in. I just thought that was a moment that needed to be captured. And then good examples of the things I see in schools when I go. I'm sure you see the same things, that there's more to our schools than meets the eye, and it's almost all positive. And another example of that we had our junior ROTC, Air Force Junior ROTC unit, have their change in command. Was it just this last week? They all flow into one day for me. Sorry about that. Anyhow, so got to be there with Mr. Neely and see that occur, and to see the 85 plus kids involved with that was pretty neat, and the parents and the way that it impacted their kids. Love that. And then I think this may be second to last slide. Our 5th graders this last week have been at 5th grade camp, but there's a whole, it's not just, thank you. It's not just a one-off thing. Okay, it's 5th grade camp, pack your sleeping bag and we'll go up and carve stuff on trees and come home. There's a whole run-up to this, as you probably know. A ton of their science and mathematics and English language arts units particularly are tied into where they're going. And a week prior to them going up to the top of Mingus Mountain, they're out in Watson Woods testing the water quality and finding little tiny creatures and stuff that I didn't realize were in the water there. It was pretty neat to see them working together in teams that way. And then this is kind of neat news. The Flynn Scholarship is I think widely considered the most prestigious scholarship in Arizona. It's worth well over $100,000, probably in the $250,000 range, I guess, between all the tuition, the books, the boarding, all the fees are taken care of for the students who receive this for all 4 years in an in-state university. Plus, there's study abroad opportunities that are paid for, et cetera. And for many years, we had a couple of faculty at the high school who kind of guided kids to apply for that. And so nearly every year we had a Flynn Scholarship. PUSD was a thing. DHS was like, whoa, how are you guys doing that? And we had great kids and faculty member doing that. We had a lull for a couple of years without providing that support or that direction for kids, but we had some kids apply this year, and we are pleased to say that Malia Harasa was awarded this year. Oh, yeah, fireworks. There you go. We're really proud of her, and I think that Abby and Nancy are going to get with her and find out more about her journey. You remember as well, we mentioned her as a semifinalist and then a finalist for the National Merit Scholarship, and I don't know that that's been, I was looking up online, I don't know that's been announced yet, the winners of that, but there's still a possibility of that. She's exceptional, for sure, in some ways, but also not that exceptional in other ways. We have fantastic. We have, how many graduates with distinction this year? Maybe 40 plus, right?
It looks like it's going to be a little higher than that. Yeah, I think we're going to have 50-ish.
And you were telling me maybe the most in the history of PHS?
I feel real confident that it's going to be the most that we've ever had.
This is a spectacular young lady, but she's not alone. Here's another one right here. I mean, there's so many great kids in our schools doing great things. A good example of that. I think this is the last one. So many of you were with us last night. Thanks for 2 long nights in a row. I'm going to be quiet, so this gets shorter. But our Rising Stars event that the PUSD Education Foundation put on last night was great. You can see the names of the kiddos that were honored last night, and then the educators that they chose as someone who really had an impact on their life. I just really love that event. And if you look at Miss Green's picture in the lower left-hand corner, it's a good reminder that you need to be mindful of what's behind you when you have your picture taken, so you don't look like you have antenna.
That's funny.
It's just a couple of things that she's got on the bulletin board behind her, but it's just unfortunate placement. I think Brian just inhaled one of his orange peels. So
Orange peels.
Yeah, so that was a great event and really indicative, again, of another type and group of students doing great things in our district. That's all I've got.
Great. All right. Brett?
Mine's a little shorter this month. I spent a couple hours at Granite Mountain Granite Mountain Upper Elementary School. We were trying to be intentional about that. The principal there I explained to her that I've been assigned their school as a member of the board, and she took me in with open arms, and I spent a couple hours with her and whatever she was doing, and then she took me around the classes, and I probably went into every classroom in 6th grade. I just wanted to become more educated on what's going on, so especially when a public member, because I want to do what's best for the kids, but when a public member comes up and says, this is happening in the classrooms, I can say, I've been in the classrooms. Let me tell you what I've observed. And so that was very beneficial for me, just to kind of continue to learn and continue to grow as a board member. And I appreciate the assignment there and looking forward to spending more time at Granite Mountain and getting in the classroom a little bit more. And then I also had an opportunity to attend a number of PHS tennis matches. And they also went to state and lost in the first round as a team, but had a successful season, and they're a very young team. I think they'll graduate maybe 2 or 3 seniors, and I think 4 or 6 are so they're looking good for the future. That's great. Yeah, that's all I have.
Jen.
I earlier in the month went to the early college program information night, because Quentin is going to be in Yavapai College Early College next year. And it was just really amazing, and I think it's pretty incredible what we offer these students to get that opportunity to do that. And Mrs. Orr just does a phenomenal job. And as a parent, where you're sending your kid to a college campus at 17 instead of waiting till they've graduated, she seems to have a real handle on how to keep them reined in and safe and not totally independently living a college life. So I'm excited about that. And then I went to the Education PUSD event last night as well for the foundation. And that is my favorite event that and the whiskey off-road. We kind of, go back and forth. But the whiskey makes us money, so we like that. But I love that event. And I have to share, just because I was a founding board member of the Education Foundation. And when we started, we hired a consultant out of Texas, and she actually told us about an event like this and said, this is what we do, and talked to us about the bus that goes around and all the things that we've been able to do over the years, and the teachers that are honored and the students. And so we did it the very first year we were a foundation. I mean, it was really one of our foundational events. Like, we really wanted that to be special, and it has just been so cool to watch these kids every single year. It was amazing, as always. Really special kids.
And Jen, to tie those 2 things together, do you remember Brianna last night? What she mentioned was unique about her. That was Alvina's student who'd been part of the early college program.
Oh, yeah, that she graduated with her associates before graduating with her high school degree, high school diploma.
Last week, he's going to graduate from
I
high
know.
school a few weeks from now. Pretty neat
I know.
opportunities that our kids have.
It's pretty crazy.
Full scholarship to Embry-Riddle, or just she's going to?
She's going to Embry-Riddle, yeah. and was
With the
offered a
generous scholarship, she said,
That's the word,
to Embry-Riddle.
Full scholarships.
And he's like, like they don't do that, so no. Yeah, it was really fabulous, and I just love seeing the teachers that are honored and the students that get picked. It's just really neat. We used to do a lot more, you guys. That was a short night. We used to have like 15 kids when we started. Do you remember? It was a lot.
They streamlined it. It's pretty neat. You're right.
Yeah.
All right, I will try to be quick. First off, I'm sorry all the teachers left, but it's Teacher Appreciation Week. So we want to say we appreciate all that they do, not only the teachers, but all the support staff as well and the administration. I mean, it should just be Educator Appreciation Week. And thank you for everything that the teachers do. I've been to a lot of baseball games, both varsity and JV, as well as some tennis matches, and just, again, how exciting it is. Went to the state baseball playoff game, and man, they should have won that game. I think there was a missed call at the end, but I'm not going to go down that route. Well, there were probably a couple of missed calls. On April 12th, I was able to attend the Teen Choice Awards, which is a new initiative by the Launchpad. PHS Interact Club was a partner in this effort, and they helped determine the categories that were awarded, as well as encouraging teens to vote. They had over 320 teens in the area vote on these awards. Some of the winners, I'm just going to mention the PUSD winners. The best social media account was the PHS Student Council, but a runner-up, you're going to love this, runner-up was PHS Naps, which is an account that catches teens napping on campus.
You will never catch me on that.
Best personnel from a security resource officer is Officer Holmes from PHS. Best librarian was Ms. Jeffries from PHS. The Uncommon Youth Leadership Award winner, this was the highest award, was Sophia Brown. She won a $3,000 scholarship from the Ron and Betsy Barnes Youth Leadership Scholarship Fund. So PUSD was really highly represented in this awards. I volunteered at the Whiskey Off-Road, did Clark's radio show, attended an insurance presentation by Asbate at Mile High, which was very interesting and very well done, and then went to Rising Stars as well, which was fantastic. So it's been a pretty active month, and we've got the North Star dinner tomorrow, or breakfast tomorrow morning, so ready to go to that too.
What are y'all wearing? Like, what are you wearing to that?
Shorts and a wife beater. No, that's not appropriate, sorry. I shouldn't have said that.
Strike that from the record, please.
No, I'm just going to wear like what I normally would wear here.
That was,
I'm sorry.
that was helpful.
Yeah, just like this is kind of what you might expect.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to miss that. I'm going to be at an Education Foundation Executive Board meeting that's got scheduled at the same time. So we'll talk about good things and make sure we keep what you got started going.
I have nothing to say because I wasn't here for the entire month. I was out of town.
You told me some awesome things about Kiwis.
I will say that traveling, whenever I go out of the country, I always like to look into schools, like look through the windows and things like that, and just to see how our schools compare looks-wise. And we do really, really well compared to what I look through. And also the issues that they're dealing with, both in Australia and New Zealand, are the very same things we're struggling with. Curriculums and what can they do to improve in curriculums, what can they do to pay their teachers more, what can they do to educate the community about what we're doing as schools. So it's not a PUSD problem, it's not a US problem, it's going on all over the whole world, and they're still dealing with post-COVID and how it's affected their students. So we're not alone.
Reassuring.
So just want to recognize Jen Hawley as well as the teacher that helped Malia with her application. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and so it's not just writing a little recommendation, it is a lengthy process. So the fact that Jen, I'm sure it's not the first time she's been asked, she knows the application process, and it's tremendous that she takes the time, and that's why she's always highly thought of among our students. So just want to recognize her for her. But she was down at I guess Saturday for the recognition dinner.
Down to
So
Phoenix,
so Malia's family picked her up and took her down there. Just amazing. So great people. Autism Awareness Month was last month, so we did have the walk at Taylor Hicks. Amazing deal. Wore the bracelet all month. It was awesome. And then Whiskey Off-Road. A lot of work that goes on in that, but I think it's just a well-oiled machine at this point, and appreciate everybody's, help and time and muscle. Yes, it is a lot of work. Next year, Jen, right? No
Yeah, I'll
cruises.
try not to plan a
Okay, no
vacation.
cruises. Thank you.
Yeah, don't enjoy yourself.
Yeah, please don't.
Well, we didn't even
I'm a
notice we
judge.
did it until much later when Stan finally asked about it. I'm like, oh no,
Jeez.
we messed up.
Yeah, great community event. Then Lincoln had the Maypole celebration. That's over 100 years we've been doing this, and my son is in second grade, and so I was there really, as part of it, but just
Were you the
the
pole?
tradition. I was the pole and no. I asked if it was the same pole, but obviously they've changed it over the years. But just that tradition. It's just love seeing that in our schools. JROTC Awards change of command. I was there. What really inspired me was just all the different veterans organizations and that give awards to our students. They recognize each one of them, and it's just important for us for community members to see how we are we do honor our veterans. We do honor those that are in the JROTC program. It's just amazing, and I think it gives a lot of hope for our future in other ways as well. When they see that, just amazing kids. Went to the boys volleyball senior night. That was cool. And have they announced? Do they have a?
They play Friday. They have a home game on Friday.
Great, gotcha.
6 o'clock, I believe.
Okay, and that's regions. Is that what that is?
It's the state
Or
tournament.
Oh, it is a state tournament. Jeez. And we're hosting, which is great. Wow. Yeah, they've done really well. Great seeing them. And then I was at the Rising Stars, and I'll be at the breakfast tomorrow. Nice. So, Carly, floor is all yours.
I know. I need to go first. You need to let them go first so that you don't take all my things. It's okay.
Change the.
Next time.
I went to Yavapai's graduation on Sunday. It was just Sunday. And Vanessa got to walk across the stage, and a lot of our people in my graduating class got to walk the stage as well, which I just think is really fun for them to get to walk across both. AP exam started. Not mine. Mine's in 2 weeks. Mine's the last one. So I'm really grateful for that. I know Gov and Kim were today. And hopefully everyone got 5s because we have great teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week. We had a really successful Spirit Week and lots of events last week at Prescott High School, which is just really sad because that was our senior Spirit Week. But we had a lot of great events with a lot of participation despite poor weather. One of the events I planned got canceled early, which was really sad. But it was our first year, and we were just really excited to see it actually get pulled off, and it worked. So that was really rewarding. You mentioned Sophia Brown. She's like my best friend in the whole world. I literally would die without her. She won Interactor of the Year through Interact Club. She's with the president, which is a major accomplishment, obviously. And Interact is a Rotary sponsored event, so she gets a lot of benefits basically for the rest of her life because of that connection that she got to make. And they were literally telling her in 10 years or 50 years, if she ever wants to she went to Kenya over the summer to help distribute mobility devices. She could do that when she's 60 if she wanted and go anywhere, which is definitely she deserves the world. And we also had the Peace Pole. What did they call that? Celebration?
Kind of a dedication of the Peace Pole.
Yeah.
There's another word I'm searching.
And she spoke at that, and me and Mr. Neely got to attend. And I actually got a hand on making the Peace Pole. So that's just really cool that we talk about the food forest. It's there. And it's just cool that we get to collaborate with different organizations like that. I heard really good things about the Abaya Judd Grand Canyon trip, which I went on back in the day, which is it's just funny to see they got the same shirts with everyone's named, which I tried to make my senior merch that, but I never got heard back from a company. But it was scared of that if it had worked out. So I just thought it was cool that they got a good trip still, and I didn't even know it was still a thing. And I heard lots about it. My NHS talent show also happened, which we had a lot of great participation in, and we raised $600 for the Prescott Area Women's Shelter. Those are my current events. I wish I had Vanessa. I wish she could be honored. She got to walk the stage. I took a photo of her. I should have sent it to you, and you could have put it up there, but it's okay.
Can I ask a question about that? Do we do anything at graduation to specially recognize those students that have already graduated from Yavapai? Like, you get your high school diploma in addition to also have received their Yavapai College?
I believe they definitely get a moment, and Miss Bailey, she obviously was here. She does a really great job. So they get 3 different chords, or different so I know you get one chord where it's the green and yellow one, and then you get one as well that's the red and black MIC TED colors, which is really cool. And Miss Bailey does I know last year, I'm not sure if she plans on doing it again, but getting the parents my son graduated.
Yeah.
Both. So I believe they get the credit they deserve.
Yeah.
Awards night.
At awards night.
Awards
Okay.
night.
Okay.
On
What's
the
that, Adam?
20th.
20th?
The 20th.
Tuesday the 20th.
Okay.
5:30. Formal.
That's right. Formal?
That's what it said, right? It said formal.
Pull out your ball gown.
Yeah.
Prescott formal?
Prescott formal.
Cowboy boots.
Yeah.
Sleeves on your tank top.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm sorry I said that. That was really inappropriate.
In high school, we used to call them that. That's super unfortunate. I don't know why we did that, but.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed, so it's okay.
Okay.
It'd be way worse if I was what are you talking about? That would have been bad.
Let's move on to item 6B, community comments. Brett?
Yes. I'll have a couple I'd like to highlight. I had a community member come a couple lunch hours this month and spent it with community members talking about schools. One of them suggested that we ought to teach how the brain learns, and she also recommended that we use more career development. I shared with her a little bit about the CTED program that she didn't know of, but she also recommended a Johnson O'Connor career development exam. So I was learning from her and some of the suggestions that she had, and then went to lunch with another community member who had some data he shared with me, came with some graphs and information, and his basic point was the students aren't failing, but maybe our legislature is in funding schools. It was interesting to hear his perspective on he was really discouraged about the privatization of public schools and the voucher system that we have, and he also highlighted in his little presentation for me that we spend less per student than anywhere else in the country. And then there were a couple of emails. One you've mentioned earlier, and I don't think that one came directly to me, so if somebody else wants to pick up and summarize that one. And then I'll also say that I appreciate Brian's presentation. I just love data because a lot of people in the public, a lot of the constituents are just misinformed, and it's nice to be able to have some graphs and some data that you can put in a folder, and so I'm still learning how to respond to some of these. I also had 2 members of our community who were terminated from PUSD, and that one I'm going to have to learn how to respond better to, because that a lot of that stuff the board doesn't know the details of some of those personnel issues, and so maybe I'll get with Clark or Andy or Stan, and maybe they can help me with some scripts or some ways to respond in a way. Both of them felt like as a district we didn't understand their point of view or their perspective, and so I tried to listen and empathize with them, but didn't have a lot say, so maybe we can address that in the future. That's my report from the public comment.
I had a meeting with a community member, with Mr. Neely and Mr. Tenney, and she's a grandparent and a community member, and has some concerns about PHS's specifically dress code. So we went over what the dress code actually is and how it's implemented and why it's written the way it's written, and I think she was pleased with most of the response. She had some good suggestions, and I mean, it was a good conversation. And we hear the opposite from other people, saying it's too strict. Some parents getting upset if their kid gets dress coded, and so it's a hard line, and let's just say Mr. Neely handles all of it super well. It was very impressive.
I don't really have anything. I don't think I ever got the email that went around, so I didn't really have any direct community comments.
I had a couple emails. I don't know if anybody else got the email from the Lincoln mom about Trump's latest executive order on using common sense, and I believe it's called common sense discipline. I addressed her. I think Clark got back to her, and she seemed pretty satisfied with the notion that we weren't going to jump off the deep edge tomorrow and start changing our discipline policies. I don't think she was aware of what we had online as far as what our district-wide discipline is. So I think I was able to satisfy her. The other ones you've already talked about, and there was one from a former a substitute teacher. I've been in contact with him twice, but I'm not ready to actually talk too much about what we discussed. It had to do with teacher dress code and desks, all desks, no tables, paying teachers a clothing stipend, a lot of things that we don't really need to discuss here right now.
Pretty good ideas, frankly.
If we have money.
Stan, sorry to go back to me. I also did get an email, I don't know if everybody else did, from a parent that had a lot of data about 4-day week. So I kind of just read through it. It's a lot of data, so I would like, but I think it's good information as we are moving forward and looking at what possibilities exist in that regard. It was a lot of information.
Was the email for or against the 4-day week?
I would just say it was really informative. Like it was, I felt like sometimes it went back and forth, kind of like we do. Like we all do it to some
I
extent, right?
expected to
There's
get
good things, there's bad things.
some more emails on the 4-day week, and I got crickets in my inbox. So
Yeah, I got a couple just, from different events where they're like, hey, anything else on that? And I just let them know that, we're going to look at it when we got out of a lull-ish in the summer, if you call that, that short window. And then we're going to continue to just discuss it and see where we're at. But there's a lot more information, a lot more that has to be put together, like we all know. The only other one was a follow-up meeting from a parent that brought in a lot of administration, and it was just the outcome was very solid. Put some concerns, enlightened some concerns with the parent. Someone is very, very much an advocate of PUSD. So, it's just reassuring to know that it doesn't fall on deaf ears, that their own kids felt heard, and we're not going to stop. So we're going to just continue to just make it even better, a better environment. So, all right. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything you'd like to pull or highlight for the consent agenda?
I would like to pull the donation 7A2 so we can thank each donation individually.
Great. Any other items? Okay, great. Jane?
All right, we had just a few this month. A donation from Mountain Institute for $250 to the Chris Predmore Teacher of the Year. A donation from Prescott Valley Ace Hardware for $100 to the CNC Garden. A donation from Richard Trujillo, a trustee, a check in the amount of $50 for PHS Athletics in memory of Cal Cordes. A donation from Matt Force for $60 for the Taylor Hicks Child Care Reimbursement. and a donation from the Arizona Association of School Business Officials. Evidently, we got their money this year. But they gave us a check for $1,000 for overdue lunch accounts. We were the recipient this year of a scholarship, or whatever you want to call it, donation. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Jane. All right, I'll consider a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay, we're moving on to, this item is, so 7B, public hearing. Do we have anybody requesting to speak in this? Okay. So hearing none, I'm going to not take a motion for a hearing, or reconvene. If we had, we would have to go into a public hearing session. So hearing none, we're going to move on to item 7C, study and voting session. Do we have any call to public or in that one? Okay. Then I'm going to move on to item 7C1, consider approving the revisions of the 24-25 budget limits for the M&O and capital budgets. Mr. Moore.
What you have is a very convoluted document. That's called School Finance Worksheet for Budgets. You know, essentially in June, we put forward a proposed budget, which primary purpose is to set the tax rate, but since we're on current year funding, we don't know how many students are showing in a month and a half or a month from that time. So essentially, if you are off by 1%, you have to do a budget revision in December, and we weren't. But there is a mandatory budget revision in May. And essentially what the budget document is it goes through our 40-some funds that we have, including federal grants, state grants, 301 money, which is called the Classroom Site Fund, or M&O, or DAA, all those funds. And essentially what it is it's the max spending potential. If the fund has carry forward, that's included. Any revenue that's anticipated for the year, that's included. And so now that we're at the conclusion of this fiscal year, the 100th day is over. We know what our 100th day numbers are. This is actually putting in, and it essentially for our I said essentially like 5 times now, for our M&O budget and our DAA, those are budget limit funds. We can't spend any more than what students come in. The rest are pretty much cash accounts or reimbursable accounts for federal grants and state grants. But really, it's like 8 pages worth of Greek. And if you have really any questions on it, I can kind of go over the page and tell you what it's saying. If you ever want a presentation on it as a whole, I could do an hour presentation going through each of them. But really, I'm just here to answer your questions. This is not actual spending. It's really spending capacity. And what you'll get in October is our annual financial report, which will be our actual spending, which will also then dictate what our carry forward is specifically in our M&O budget, because we can still pay bills all the way through August 31st. So even though you have this, you know, we're still going to be paying bills. We're still going to be receiving revenue. So I couldn't answer exactly what our carry forward would be because we still have almost 4 months of operating still to go. Yes. So
this may be kind of a stupid question, but
there are no stupid questions when it comes to this.
This happens every May. There's multiple times you said throughout the year we look at these again. Was it that way when we weren't funded in current year funding?
It still
or is
was.
that because of the current year funding that we have this rolling?
No, but the December revision. So when we weren't current year funding, what we operated prior year. So the 100th day would come. We would be talking budgets, 100 days in January, and we really would know exactly what our budget would be. And during those times, they didn't increase for many years what a student was worth. So you literally could figure out exactly what that next year's budget's going to be. So you'd still have the proposed budget, you still would have the adopted budget. The December revision really didn't happen. because you knew what your budget was going to be before the year started or before the proposed and adopted budget. But you always then still had to do a May revision. It just didn't change as much as it does now. When it comes to our ADM, we're down about 90 ADM, and it's mainly in the K-8 area. Now, luckily, through some auditing and some being more fiscally conscious when it comes to like eligibility categories for special ed, our Group B weight, which is the special ed add-on or K3 add-on, is actually up, and it kind of washes that. But we are down 90 students, and our Group B is what kept us from having to do a December revision. If our Group B weight was not up, we would have had to have done a December revision, because not only were we down 90 kids, I also always, when we budget, I also go about 35 kids more than what we had the prior year. So really that July adopted budget was about 110, 115 ADM off. And, but like I said, our Group B weights carried us when it comes to that whole.
Okay.
That was a fantastic question.
Thank you.
An important point,
yes,
again, that we probably just need to make sure the community knows is our primary tax rate has dropped from last year to this upcoming year. So I think that's important for people to understand that.
On average, our assessed value for the Prescott area was up 6%. So
Yeah.
we may be a couple hundredths of a percent down on our taxes, on our our tax rates. But most people, like my contribution to PUSD on my tax bill was, was like $30 more.
Yeah.
But it's pretty stable.
But the tax rate itself went down.
The tax rate
The tax rate itself went down.
So,
It is.
People hopefully are happy that their assessed value is increasing, because that's money in their pocket.
Yes, it is.
But we're not taxing them at the same rate on that higher assessed value. So I think that's a positive that it would be nice if people understood.
I wasn't even aware of that. That's cool.
Yeah, it will. And there's a worksheet that I go through for that tax rate. And we'll see what it is in July and for the adopted budget. But. Any other questions on any of the pages? On page 7, I think it shows that going into this year, I think our carry forward was like 4.3 million. That included about $1 million in one-time money that last year we paid as a retention bonus. I'm estimating it's going to be about like 2.6 this year. So it will have a significant decrease in our carry forward, but we also have been drawing that down, because too much carry forward is not really, it's not helping the students that we presently have. A safe carry forward is about 6 to 8%, and we've been about 12 to 13% carry forward in the last 4 or 5 years.
Anything else, Brian?
Well, thank you.
All right. And we'll take a motion to approve the revisions to the 24-25 budget limits for the M&O and capital budgets. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. All right. Item 7C2, consider taking action to temporarily suspend the district's restriction against the presence and consumption of alcohol on district grounds, specifically Prescott Mile High Middle School, football field, and track area. And, yep, Mr. Tim.
About 3 or 4 times a year, the city has an event downtown that they need more space for, and they ask if they can rent Mile High's field on a non-school day. It's always over a weekend. I don't know if this one is, because it's over the summer, but probably is as well. Great, yeah. Anyhow, this is one that's come before the board several times. This specific event has come before the board several times, and other events have. And by law, the board is allowed to do just what it's suggesting here: suspend the prohibition against the presence and consumption of alcohol on our campuses for events like this that are sponsored by other folks who are renting. You're not allowed, it's worth noting, to suspend the prohibition of tobacco products on our premises. The city's always done a great job of monitoring things, making sure there's enough police presence. They often get the Arizona Rangers and whatnot there as well, cleaning up after themselves and making sure that tobacco use is actually prohibited and proscribed during their events. So in the past, we've had folks from the City Recreation Department wait through the first 3 hours of our meeting and then say, do you have any questions? And the boards in the past have always said, nope, we're good. And we said, thanks for staying here for 3 hours. We actually waved Michelle Stacy Schroeder off this time. She said, that's the best thing that's happened ever. So if you have questions that I can't answer, I apologize for that. But hopefully, if you have questions, it's something I'm aware of and I can help out. Any questions about anything?
It does stay on the track football field, doesn't cross the bridge.
Correct.
anything like
Yep. Yeah, it's all in that fenced area there. And again, they've got pretty good supervision, including police presence.
And you're in favor, recommend this kind of partnership?
Yeah, we've done this multiple times for the city and it's worked out well for us.
And it looks like a good revenue source too?
Yeah, there's some.
It is.
2,200.
I don't know the amount, is it here?
2,200.
I can't remember.
Okay, yeah, I didn't.
It's a couple
pay attention
thousand.
Carefully, yeah, there you go, that's, I mean,
James was saying
for one day, yeah, there you go, super, for coming in, using the field, cleaning up after themselves and whatnot, I think. That's a pretty good deal for us. Great. Ends up helping kids.
Then we'll take a motion to consider taking action to temporarily suspend the district's restriction against the presence and consumption of alcohol in district grounds, specifically Prescott Mile High Middle School football field and track area.
I
So
will make that
moved.
motion.
Oh, either one.
Jen and I will make that motion.
And one of us will second it.
Yeah.
I'll second it. Whoever you wrote down.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 7C3, consider approving the memorandum of understanding between Cartwheel Health Services PC and PUSD number 1 for the Arizona Mental Health Telehealth Pilot Program. Mr. Tenney.
Okay, great. Yeah, for the last couple of years, the Arizona Department of Education has earned themselves a reputation for being somewhat less helpful to local school districts than they had been the previous 4 years. But here's a notable exception to that trend. The current superintendent of public instruction in Arizona, Tom Horn, has found areas where the federal government made funding sources available to school partners in the state from COVID funds and whatnot that hadn't been entirely used, and clawed those back, and so had some funding available to do other things with. They've done a couple of things. A lot of the feedback that they get from local districts is that we need tutoring resources, and so you recall that they made some tutoring available in one way. Recently, they made some AI virtual tutoring through Plum and Amigo available, and we're taking advantage of that. This is another program that they're making available. Another piece of feedback that districts often give is we don't have the resources available to help with the mental health issues that we're seeing in our schools as kids, spend 2/3 of their life on these. There's more issues that are coming about as they kind of detach from what was our reality growing up. And we've got significant resources in our schools to help with that, but it's not enough. We get overwhelmed quickly, and then when we refer out to local resources, there are not enough local resources to help families and kids that have mental health issues either. So this is pretty neat. There's a organization on the state level that is prepared to help out telephonically, like video type, like teledoc type of thing. Telehealth, that's the word for it. Thank you, do telehealth. And there's a grant that the state has received to pay them for their services, and this is available to us essentially for free. So if we work with student triage and find, hey, there's maybe a need for continued services instead of, we can continue to refer to folks in the community, and we'll do that, but again, those folks tend to be at capacity. Here's another option to refer to this Cartwheel Health organization, and they'll do, with parent permission, initial assessment, and they'll provide services up to 5 kids pro bono. So if they look and they find out the family circumstances are such that they can't pay at all, up to 5 a year, they'll do that. And then the capacity is up to 100 kids total. I don't foresee us referring 100 kids their direction, but the others are paid through by the family's insurance. So, yeah, it's another resource to get our kids help when we need them if the parents are on board and feel that that's a useful thing and no cost to us. So we're pretty pleased to have that available. And there's an MOU that between that organization and ours that spells that out. We ran it by our district's attorney, Mr. Paoli, and he said this looks good in all respects. So if your board is in favor of it conceptually, then in terms of the legal pieces of it, we're told that we're set. Questions?
It's great. I'm glad that we're stepping forward with this.
Yeah.
I think I had read, I wrote a note to myself, but I can't find it now, that families can use Medicare and/or Access, and I should
That's
say
my
or
understanding.
Access.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a video conference with the folks making this available, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that, and that's my recollection as well. Typically with an MOU, with an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement, if it's the first time, we always put it on the voting agenda like this. With an MOU, it's a kind of a lower level type of a situation usually, and that often goes on a consent agenda, but this I wanted to highlight for you because it's a neat opportunity for our kids that we haven't had before.
Yeah, it is very challenging to find mental health care, especially for kids in our community, that's readily available. And even, this appears it's even available for people who don't have insurance at all. There's a gap between families who can afford insurance and families who qualify for access. And unfortunately, those in that gap often just don't have any coverage whatsoever.
Right.
So that gives them some opportunity for care that they wouldn't otherwise have.
Great. Then we'll take a motion to consider approving the MOU between Cartwheel Health Services PC and PUSD number 1 for the Arizona Mental Health Telehealth Pilot Program.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 7C4, consider adopting the proposed changes to ASPA policy BEDB. Mr. Binder.
All right, so this is
Policies
a
just never stop.
second reading, although I'm pretty sure it's more like a fifth or sixth reading. But I think overall, the board has really landed in a good spot with this. Just to review for the community, this is a descriptor around the community comments section shared with board members. And again, through lots of conversation over the last several months and feedback, the final reading reads, board members are encouraged to listen to community members and share their concerns. These comments should be summarized and condensed to reflect the intention of the community member. Although open meeting laws will not allow for discussion on unagendized topics, these concerns can be considered for future agenda items. So exactly what was modeled just a few minutes ago. So in addition to that, the one other change in this policy was in the last section, accommodations for the disabled. We removed Sarah's name, specific name, and just included the administrative assistant to the governing board, so we didn't have to revise that each time. So any questions on that?
Although I think we'll have to revise it if it's not Sarah because it's her email. However, it's always going to be Sarah, so it's fine.
That's right.
So we don't really need to.
Oh, we need to take out the Sarah too, right?
Well, her email has to be in there for them to reach.
And
So-
then do we have an info@prescottschools.com or anything like that? A generic email address?
We do. We could do that. If you want to bring us back for another reading, let's.
Let's see if we can keep it going for the 4 years I'm on the board.
I will point out, both by law and by policy, we don't have to do 2 readings. That's the mode that you've chosen for things. And so you could ask us as part of your motion, if somebody says, I'd like to make a motion that we accept this as written with the exception of info@prescottschools.com, you could do that. We wouldn't have to go back to the drawing board unless you wanted to, and we'd be happy to accommodate whatever works for you.
Is that email regularly checked?
The info one?
Not
It
the
is.
Sarah Torres one.
Yeah, the info
Both,
is.
both actually. Just last week, Sarah checked her email. Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay.
I think we ought to make that part of our motion, then we don't have to.
Yeah.
That's a good catch. You're right. We had intentionally taken Sarah's name out with the thought that when she wins the lottery next month and moves to the Bahamas, we wouldn't have to come back and
Redo
revise
this.
this. But, Sure. Yeah, would you like? That'd be great.
Just real quick,
That's a great idea.
so at our board retreat, the board asked
See, this has to be shorter than Brian's presentation.
Kelsey and I to come up with a form so that community members could fill out the form, submit it, and then all of the board members
other discussion?
We just need to amend the motion.
Okay, so consider adopting the proposed changes to ASBA policy BED with the change of removing Sarah Torres at PrescottSchools.com and replacing with info@PrescottSchools.com. We'll take a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 7C5, consider approving the school facilities division's terms and conditions for acceptance of monies from the Building Renewal Grant Fund for PUSD school sites. Mr. Moore.
There's no funds yet. Let's just put it that way. The way the school facilities division works is you put in what's called a BRG application, and it's essentially saying we have a deficiency. Here's a school, here's a building, here's what it is, and you submit it, and then they'll review it, and they'll say, yes, we agree, you have an issue. That's what this is.
Okay.
So I've submitted the BRG applications. They have agreed that if there are funds or when there are funds available, that we'll be able to apply for those funds. After that initial BRG applications, they give you the terms and conditions, and that's what you have in front of you. And then hopefully in the near future, for the windows, we've asked a company that we worked with before at Mile High doing the windows and doors, Edge Construction, to give us a quote on Abaya Judd's and Lincoln's windows. The bridge at Granite is the bridge that goes from essentially the level area by the office and that 5th grade building, or is it the 6th grade? Yeah, and goes to the 2nd level of the cafeteria. And essentially, actually, what these funds are is to have a design done, because it's going to be a pretty significant engineering feat to redo that.
So this would just be for the design?
This is only for the, well, let me back that up. They have said there's an issue with that bridge. And so the terms and conditions are essentially outlining when there are funds available, how you need to use them. Once this is done, I will submit the quote for the design, and just the design is like $63,000. And so that would be the next stage, is the design. But no matter what, once the deficiency is said to be agreed upon, terms and conditions are brought to the governing board.
And this deficiency of the bridge is not imminently dangerous?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Our facilities have been able to make it, the concrete has been eroding on the sides where there's the fence, and there's enough for a student to try to slip, between the fence and the concrete. They've done, I believe, everything to remedy that. And they've done the repairs, and so the bridge just needs to be redone at some point.
Come and take a look and say, this is fine for now, but it's not going to be in the future.
No. And most of it's just the age of it and concrete wearing. We got some rebar showing. So, yeah.
Great.
It's a very unique feature.
It is.
There.
Yeah.
Bridge.
Try to have, we'll see how the new one looks. Maybe we'll have a fountain or something like that.
Fountain.
Statue. Okay.
Have our CTED design it and weld it, and
Sounds good.
we could save a lot of money. All right, any other questions? Okay. Then we'll take a motion to approve the school facility division's terms and conditions for acceptance of monies from the Building Renewal Grant Fund for PUSD school sites.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, moving on to item 7D1. Mr. Moore has prepared the school board summary budget report for your review. Mr. Moore.
As presented, unless you have questions.
Thank you. Item 7D2, request for future agenda items. Does anybody have any?
As far as policy advisory, how do you want, you've heard from both groups
we
now.
probably do need to
Do
get
you
that on
want
the
to
agenda.
include a discussion of that on a future agenda? Are you ready to have a discussion accompanying a vote on a future agenda? How would you like us to, or would you like us to just drop it? You're good with what you got?
When's our subscription run out?
So for ASBA, we're paid through the end of next year. So that, actually, the timing that Jennifer suggested
Makes
in
sense.
terms of what we've already paid
Oh,
for
yeah.
is workable, and it certainly
Okay.
gives us a lot of runway. We could do any number of things, though, as she suggested.
But if we chose the trust, we would need to then pay that in addition to the ASBA.
Right, yeah, exactly. We paid for this year now to have access to it and to use the one piece that she actually showed. Interesting, I don't think she was aware that we had adopted the staff-student boundaries piece as a separate document that we're having everybody sign now at Mr. Paoli's recommendation. But kind of interesting. So we paid a nominal amount for that, and you saw that the total amount is relatively low if we decide to adopt it. It compares very favorably with what we're currently paying.
Yeah, we'll just get a reminder of what the research that you all did on the sections that you took. You don't need the whole presentation, I think, just, what you found, and just remind us.
So would you like presentation, discussion item next time?
I certainly think discussion item would be helpful, to just kind of,
Could I
so
ask,
each of us can kind of discuss what we were thinking, our thoughts on it, and in the public.
and I've asked this question, both of you and of ASBA, about conflict of interest, since my role with ASBA is as the county, I'm on the board of directors for ASBA. So I just want to be sure that there's not going to be a conflict with me discussing or voting on this issue, since.
Let's double check.
We might want to ask Dave.
Yeah, from my perspective, there's no more conflict of interest there than you voting on the ASBATE insurance piece a couple weeks ago. They're separate entities, all off the same kind of parent company, so to speak.
I would guess I would say not really, because ASBATE, I'd have to look at this in general, but I'm not sure that is a revenue source for ASBA.
Fair enough, that might be a difference.
The ASBA Insurance Trust, I believe, works separately while still under the umbrella, but I don't believe that it's a revenue source.
And you're right that the policy advisory piece is a revenue source for ASBA, so, yeah, let's run that by Dave Paoli. And
Okay,
we'll let you know what he says.
If you could help me facilitate that.
No question, yeah, good idea.
I want to be sure it's not just me going forward.
Good thinking.
All right. I think that's all we have there. So our next meeting is on June 17th. Sort of 5 o'clock. Chapters 9 and 10. We've got last day of school, Thursday, May 22nd. All of us will be at graduation. Will everybody be there? Do you think there will be?
Yes, I will be there.
Oh, there's a,
He's thinking about it.
You've been to everyone since, for graduates, right? For many years here.
What's our role? Are we just going to sit on the
That's pretty
stage?
cool.
You'll be introduced to your fans.
Our fans.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not an active role for anyone except for the governing board president says a few words. So if you couldn't make it, that certainly would not be without precedent.
you could make a little cardboard figure to sit where.
We could, right?
Yeah.
We also have like
Or your
cardboard
shirt.
cut out of C-3PO if you prefer.
Yeah.
So either way works.
I'll be there.
Awesome. That's great. It'd be so nice to highlight all the graduates and Teacher of the Year. Be an amazing deal.
Just, and you noted that the next meeting's on June 17th, not the first Tuesday.
Right.
And you're aware for the budget reasons and whatnot. But if you kind of got in the mode, if I show up every first Tuesday, you're going to be here by yourself.
That could be good.
Just let us know that you did that so we can.
Yeah, there you go. We'll check it out.
It'll be a lot better meeting, I promise.
Shorter, it'll be shorter.
And you'll make sure we have snacks.
Long meeting, everybody, but we kept it under 4 hours.
I
Adjourned.
This might be one of our shorter. We were